Chapter 498 The alchemy competition has begun. Nice to meet you, Lady Eve. Noah smiled, slightly bowing his head to show her the respect she deserves. Once the group had greeted each other, they sat down in the front row of the VIP seat except Noah and Jennifer, since they were both participants and they only came to the VIP seating due to their connections. Whether it was intentional or otherwise, Princess Eve ended up sitting beside an empty chair between Hendrix and her. Standing closer to Eve, the faint female body fragrance drifted from the side, causing him to become a little distracted. As the sun in the sky moved, the number of people in the VIP seats also increased. These people were mostly people of higher officials in the guild or people with connections. The audience seats opposite them had long been overly packed. The shouting aggregated into a torrent that shot to the horizon. A long while later, Noah suddenly sensed some movement in the seats around him. Only then did he frown and turn his head around to see the source of the commotion. 2 lines of silver-armored soldiers escorted 3 people to the VIP seatings. Gabriel, Noah muttered as he looked at the tall, dashing man with striking golden hair walking towards them. The emerald-green robes couldn't hide the man's perfect body structure, which would raise any woman's heartbeat. With perfect jaw structure, small lips, and blue eyes, the man looked like a model out of a magazine. Edith walked behind Gabriel with Lillian Icarus, whom Ghost met during his test to become the judge. Lord Gabriel, many of the nobles stood up from their seats to show their respect. The man sat on the throne of the #1 alchemist of Elon and Azer for decades. Although Ghost proved he was better than Gabriel, the Alchemy King still had the respect and admiration of many nobles. Hence, even Aishan and Alred stood up from their seats to welcome him. Grandmaster Hendrix, Gabriel arrived before Hendrix and greeted him with a stoic face. Since Hendrix became who he is by learning from the old Revenant, Hendrix never hesitated to share his knowledge with others. But despite learning so many things from Hendrix, Gabriel felt no gratitude towards him. Hendrix returned Gabriel's greet with a nod. Hi. Edith quietly gave a quick wave at Noah. If only Gabriel could assassinate Hendrix, he would be able to use his contacts to join the Heavenly Alchemist's ranks. With their resources and knowledge, it would be only a matter of time before he reaches the 6-star alchemist level. However, to reach his goals, Hendrix must die. That's Alchemy King Gabriel. Lord Gabriel. Hail the King. Hail the Alchemy King. Noah saw the alchemists and the crowd erupted into thunderous cheers. Compared to the Grandmasters and Hendrix, Gabriel's fame was on the next level thanks to his marketing strategies and promotions. Not a single one didn't know Gabriel and admired in the world of alchemy. The cheers he received were evident of his fame. Gabriel turned to look at the cheering crowd and gracefully waved his hand while Lillian Icarus seemed extremely haughty seeing his teacher enjoying such fathomless fame and cheers from the crowd. He felt as though the crowd is cheering for him. Jennifer and Eve quietly waited patiently for Gabriel to take his seat. While the crowd was raving for Gabriel, a golden trail appeared in the sky above. They all looked up to see a figure completely dressed in black slowly descending towards the VIP seatings. Ghost. Edith's heart skipped a beat when she saw Michael. His long black coat fluttered in the wind as he kept his hands casually inside the pant pockets. After Michael appeared, everyone in the VIP seatings turned their gazes from Gabriel to Michael. Meanwhile, the cheering didn't die down but gradually sounded less loud than a few moments ago. Of course, unlike Gabriel, Michael didn't pay a bunch of people to kick-start the cheering. If Michael wished to get thunderous cheers, he could have simply brought the entire river town along with the Sunrise disciples. Still, little by little, some of the people who were present during the tournament recognized Michael and spread his name among the crowd. Under the thunderous cheers for Gabriel, Michael calmly landed on the VIP stage beside Noah. Ghost. Noah greeted Ghost with a nod. Despite their differences in morals, Noah respected Ghost. As an alchemist training under Andreas, Noah knew how difficult it is to become a higher star alchemist. Moreover, Ghost was an orphan. So unlike him, he didn't have the resources Noah had. Still, Ghost managed to become a 5-star alchemist, and not only that, he even managed to surpass him in cultivation. However, If Noah wanted to earn money and focused on solely getting stronger, he would have equalized Ghost. Noah had responsibilities to bring balance to the world as well as prepare for the greater war with the Dark Lord. Michael also did the same and saw the familiar and unfamiliar faces staring at him. Gabriel stopped waving as he turned his gaze to the young man who dethroned him. To be honest, Gabriel couldn't believe his eyes. How the hell did he reach the 5-star level at such a young age? That was the question that immediately emerged in his mind. You're Ghost. Hendrix's tired eye became lively as he stood up from his seat, which surprised everyone on the stage. Before Ghost could greet anyone on the stage, Hendrix himself extended his hand. Lord Hendrix. It's a pleasure to meet you. Michael firmly shook his hand. The pleasure is all mine to see such a talented young man. Hendrix squeezed his arm before letting it go. Grandmaster Asian, Grandmaster Alred. After greeting Hendrix, Michael greeted Alred and Asian with a smile, completely ignoring the crowd cheering for Gabriel. Lord Gabriel, I'm honored to meet you. You're an inspiration. For a moment, Gabriel was stunned. He thought Ghost would act arrogant or haughty. But, on the contrary, Ghost greeted him with full of respect and admiration. One couldn't blame Gabriel for thinking like that. He didn't surpass Hendrix, yet when he achieved fame and stardom, he never respected Hendrix. The longest conversation Gabriel had with Hendrix after Hendrix left Elon was how is everything in awe? So Gabriel naturally thought Ghost would be arrogant. He even formed a few quotes to mock Ghost in case he acted arrogantly. Yet Ghost completely surprised him by greeting him with respect. His gesture not only surprised Gabriel but everyone on the stage except Edith. To her, it looked like the wolf greeting a sheep. I am to many, Gabriel said proudly, revealing a slight grin that oozed arrogance. Since everyone arrived at the stage, the judges and Eve took the front row while the nobles and the elders took the seats in the back. On the front row, Grandmaster Asian, Grandmaster Alred, Gabriel, Hendrix, Ghost, and Eve sat respectively from left to right. As time gradually flowed, the time for the start of the alchemy competition slowly arrived under tens of thousands of gazes. Ding! When a clear bell rang out on the plaza, the buzzing sound of the crowd murmuring and cheering that had shot to the skies suddenly became quiet. Sponsored content. Visit Rietal. Me for extra chapters. Hearing the bell ringing in his ears, Hendrix Gardner quivered slightly and stood up. Then he slowly walked to the very front of the VIP stage. His gaze watched the thousands of alchemists seated behind the jade tables below. At this moment, over 2,000 alchemists lifted their heads and threw respectful gazes toward Hendrix, who stood atop the world of alchemy with his talents. As the leader of the Alchemist Guild, I pronounce that the 16th alchemy competition has begun. Yee-yi-yi. The entire ground boiled as the crowd let out a thunderous roar in excitement. Hendrix waited until the crowd became silent again. Only then did he softly say, Now, I would like competitors to settle before a jade table. Although the arena was currently bustling about to the point that the ring of the bell could hardly be heard, Hendrix's voice managed to still sound in everyone's ears, thanks to Hendrix's fusion stage cultivation level. Hearing Hendrix's words, those alchemists who haven't settled before a table quickly found one. Some alchemists in the VIP seats immediately stood up. There, the alchemists mainly were groomed by or roped into some of the more powerful groups. Due to having a powerhouse to support them, the tier of these alchemists was slightly higher as a whole compared to those free alchemists. Leylon, Jennifer, Noah, you three should also get down and join them. Since we're very much excited to see you three compete against each other, the tables over there belong to the three of you. Asian pointed at the 3 jade tables in the very center of the arena. Those 3 seats will make you the focus of the crowd's attention. Following Asian, Alred spoke, snapping his fingers. As soon as he snapped, the 3 tables assigned to Noah, Jennifer, and Leylon got elevated a foot higher from the ground, making the 3 tables the focus of everyone. Good luck. Edith gave a thumbs up before Noah followed behind Leylon and Jennifer. While the 3 were preparing to leave the VIP stage, Michael leaned back on his chair, focusing on Arya, who was on her way to post a quest on the Adventure Guild. Among the 3, Leylon looked a little excited, on top of being proud. Jennifer was curious and eager, while Noah had a calm look on his face as usual. You youngsters won't have any fun memories to recall in the future unless you do some rash and arrogant things, Hendrix said with a smile to the youngsters on the stage. That's one of the worst pieces of advice I've heard. Michael laughed inside but put on a calm face showing no emotions. Guild leader is right. Ah, Leylon laughed as he had heard something so funny. He laughed proudly for no reason. The few of you, please proceed down. Alred gestured at them to get down. The two of you, I will go first. Leylon, who was laughing like a maniac, pressed the ground lightly, and his body charged to the edge of the high platform. He glanced at the huge open ground below. Then he leaped, diving forward, and creating countless gasps among the spectators as well as the alchemist down. Arch steps. His body swiftly descended, and just as he was about to reach the ground, he cast a spell. As soon as he cast the spell, giant purplish steps made of sparkling arch energy materialized in midair, connecting the ground. Using the steps, he landed on the ground without any injury. After which, he swiftly walked up to the arena's middle spot under the spectators' stunned gazes with a smug smile. He really likes to show off, huh? But does he think only he knows how to jump? Eyeing Leylon, who had received attention from everyone by directly leaping down, Jennifer rolled her eyes, smacking her lips together. Her lovely body leaped forward and also shot off of the high platform. Like a falling leaf, her body gently and elegantly descended. Her beautiful posture was like that of a goddess. Whoa, this beautiful action of Jennifer had undoubtedly stirred more hearts than Leylon's earlier performance. But her beauty and grace caused shocking gasps from the VIP seats and loud roars from the audience seats. Look at that. You taught her something other than alchemy. Good for you, Grandmaster Alred. Aishan playfully punched Alred on the shoulder and joked, beauty comes with great opportunities and dangers. Therefore, one should always be prepared to fend off the predators. Hendrix calmly spoke. His words contained wisdom which Michael agreed with completely. Youngman, why don't you leap down as well? After seeing Jennifer and Leylon making such a grand entrance, Aishan probed Noah to do the same as the previous two. I think I will walk down, Noah smiled, shaking his head. But instead of jumping down, Noah chose to walk down the stairs. Chapter 499. The first round. Noah quietly stood behind the jade table and looked at ingredients neatly placed on the table alongside a golden paper. A square glass of emerald stone was also embedded at the front of the table with a weak green-red light flickering. As Noah picked up the thin paper and looked at it, he realized it was actually a formula for a pill. However, the formula was written with so many complex, unnecessary steps. It would be near impossible to concoct the pill following the formula within the given time. Failure would be inevitable if an alchemist failed to decode the formula and simplify the steps. Failure would be inevitable. Another hurdle for the participants was the number of ingredients on the table. Just like Olivia informed Michael, the guild gave the participants 2 batches of ingredients, which meant each participant only had 2 chances. If the medicinal ingredients were completely exhausted and the participant concocted no pill, then the participant would be eliminated from the competition. How long will it take for you to concoct the pill? Eve asked Michael sitting beside him. Quickly, all the nobles focused on Michael to hear his answer. 45 seconds. Everyone, including Hendrix, was surprised by Michael's answer. Hendrix was a 6-star alchemist who could achieve 95% purity, but even for him, it would take at least a minute to concoct the pill. So naturally the others would take longer. That's a bit unrealistic, don't you think? Alred leaned forward a bit and asked Michael, It's not actually Grandmaster Alred. The reason why I can concoct the pill quicker is my method of directly refining ingredients in the fire instead of using the cauldron. It cuts the time approximately by half, so it's dangerous, and one should not use that method. There is a reason that method went extinct. Gabriel expressed his discontent, but Michael responded with a smile. Of course, I wouldn't teach this method to someone else. It's dangerous. Then why do you do it? Eve curiously asked Michael as he turned to look at her stoic angelic face. What can I say? I like thrills. His answer surprisingly made Eve gently smile. The nobles who saw her smile were stunned beyond words. The reason, however, is that Eve felt no creepy vibes from Michael and Noah as she felt from the others. They were sitting side by side, but he never even touched her finger. Michael always maintained eye contact while talking to her and kept his distance as a gentleman should. Moreover, he didn't even try to make conversation with her. Everything made Eve see him in a slightly good light. No wonder teacher said the competition won't be easy. Noah held the thin piece of paper and smiled bitterly, shaking his head. He then lifted his head and glanced in all directions, only to realize confusion on many of the alchemists' faces. Turning his head to the side, he eyed Jennifer and Leylon on his left and right. Unlike the rest, both of them appeared much calmer. However, they were still both frowning slightly as they found some errors with the formula recorded on the thin paper. Noah took a deep breath and focused on the thin piece of paper in his hand. Since Noah had neither competed in an alchemy competition nor concocted a pill in front of thousands of people, Noah's heart and mind felt a bit uneasy. While Noah was focused on the formula, Leylon turned over to Noah. He saw the bitter smile on the former's face that had yet to disappear and could not help but softly give a cold laugh. You should have stayed in your guild. Since you didn't, you're gonna embarrass yourself in front of Eve. Fool. Having studied under Gabriel since he was little, Leylon had great confidence in himself. So, naturally, he thought he would triumph over the rest and have the qualification to marry either one of the Valdegard daughters. On the enormous open ground, all the competitors held the thin paper. Each displayed a different expression as they gazed at the paper. The entire plaza was totally silent. The silence haunted the arena for 5 minutes until a clear bell sounded suddenly out of nowhere. Hearing the bell ring, all the participants immediately halted what they were doing. Then, following the bell ringing, Hendrix, whose eyes were closed, finally opened them. I hope you've studied the formula and found the errors, if there are any. Let there be an hourglass. As Hendrix's voice swept across the arena, an ethereal hourglass materialized in the sky above the alchemists. You have 30 minutes to concoct the pill with at least 20% purity. After that, you shall place the pill you concocted on the mirror on your table. The mirror will let out a green light if your pill has met the requirements. Otherwise red, which will indicate that you've been eliminated. Hendrix paused for a moment, letting the alchemists digest everything he had just told them. Do you all understand? Hendrix asked with a smile. Yes. The alchemists roared, shaking the arena. Hendrix slowly lifted his palm as he smiled. The first round of the examination shall now begin. His voice echoed through the arena, and the moment he waved his palm, the ethereal hourglass turned upside down as the golden sands slowly rained from one end to another. As soon as the timing began, the alchemist flicked their wrists, taking out their cauldron from their space ring. Shouldn't we have given them all the same cauldron? Michael asked the other judges. Sponsored content visit Rietal. Me for extra chapters. I think so too, Eve nodded. Luck is a part of alchemy, young man. One has to be lucky to achieve great success in alchemy. For a moment, Michael was confused about the connection between the question he asked and the answer he received from Hendrix. In simple words, if you aren't lucky to get a great cauldron or born into a wealthy family, you won't get too far, Alred chuckled. Not everyone has a death wish to refine pills directly and potions like you ghost. Once again, Michael received a scornful response from Gabriel. However, if Michael wished, he could kill Gabriel in a flash since Gabriel was at the core strengthening stage. At the same time, he reached soul refining stage level 3 after killing King Bridia's men. Luckily for Gabriel, Michael wasn't here to kill him, at least not yet. Meanwhile, Noah quietly stood behind the jade table. With a flick of his wrist, Noah summoned his cauldron from the space ring. It was a pearl-white cauldron with 3 handles resembling dragons. There were numerous undisguisable writings engraved on the outside as well as inside. Unlike the rest, Noah did not immediately summon his flame and start the refinement. Instead, he quietly held the paper and studied the formula once again. As Andreas taught him, preparation was crucial for success. Considering he only had 2 chances, negligence wasn't an option. The guild required one to refine a pill called Burn Healer. As the name suggests, it was a kind of medicinal pill used to treat wounds caused by fire and acid. Usually, these pills were used by those who couldn't afford a healing potion and were fairly cheap. In an alchemy store, they wouldn't sell the pill for more than 50 to 100 gold coins depending on its purity. Refining the pill required a total of 5 ingredients. Although the pill was cheap, the refining process was complex and needed an alchemist to possess good control over their alchemy fire and knowledge of each ingredient. Since Noah brewed his own healing potion, he was unfamiliar with the process of making a burn healer. Michael silently watched Noah studying the parchment without starting to refine the ingredients. On the other hand, Jennifer and Leylon had already conjured the flames and let the fire surround the cauldron. Michael failed to see a different color flame other than emerald green. Why did everyone have green flames by default? It's because fire created by pure arch energy burns green. Only by absorbing a primordial flame could one change the flame color produced by the arch energy. Hence, Michael had black flames, Rowena had icy blue flames, and Noah possessed bright blue fire. Regardless of their character, these two are really talented, Noah said to himself. However, no matter how he counted, Noah had only studied alchemy for 4 years give or take. Therefore, on certain aspects, Noah could not catch up with Jennifer and Leylon, who their teachers groomed for decades. After all, no matter how talented one is or whom one learned from, it would be impossible to catch up decades of experience in such a short time unless they had a system like Michael, of course. Yet what even Michael failed to grasp was that he may have learned the book of alchemy through the system. Still, his innate talent for manipulating darkness and control over the fire made him reach the point he was at the moment. For a day, Michael refined hundreds of pills and potions. He had never slacked off despite having a system. "So Ghost, can I call you Ghost?" Eve looked at Michael. "I insist," Michael said with his usual alluring smile that made Eve's heart skip a beat. "Do you think you can give some pointers to my sister?" She smiled. No one with a brain and eyes would say no to such an angelic woman, and Michael wasn't an exception. But, of course, it was not because of her beauty but because of her family background. He needed some connections in R, and making friends with Eve didn't seem like a bad idea. "Of course, just tell me, where do you want me to meet you?" At this moment, over 10 minutes had elapsed since the start of the examination. Red lights were already flickering off and on during these short 10 minutes within the arena. After the red light flickered, those alchemists who had failed could only leave the arena with many regrets. They should have rushed like that. Alred commented about the alchemists leaving the arena after their pills failed to meet the requirements. Noah indifferently glanced at an alchemist before him who kept his head down as he walked out of the arena with a face on the verge of crying. Once again, Noah ignored the commotion to focus on refining. "Let's begin." Noah cracked his knuckles as he finally decided to conjure his flames. Under thousands of gazes, Noah flicked his wrist as a bright blue flame materialized above his hand, dancing like a lady. A primordial flame. Michael immediately felt the familiar energy waves radiating from the fire above Noah's hands. It was weaker than the dark flames but still had off-the-chart energy radiations like the dark flames. Chapter 500 Noah's Struggle and Victory. Wow. Blue flame? Seeing the bright blue flame he had conjured, waves of exclamation immediately sounded throughout the arena. Since every alchemist, including Leylon and Jennifer, had emerald green fires, Noah's bright blue flame became the center of attention in the arena. Many spectators gasped in shock as they stared at the dancing blue fire without batting an eye. Primordial flame? Eyeing the cluster of blue flame hovering above Noah's palm, Hendrix was astonished. This young man has godly luck to possess a primordial flame. The sky's the limit for him. That's my friend Noah Winston, ya sons of bitches. A childish voice echoed through the arena from the spectators. Michael looked in the direction to see the golden Babaru bouncing up and down atop Alicia's shoulder. When Alicia saw Michael's gaze landing on her, her eyes flickered, radiating immense killing intent. However, Michael turned his gaze away from her, completely ignoring her. As far as he was concerned, she was not even worth fighting. With her core formation cultivation level, killing him would only be possible in her dreams and imaginations. The blue flame danced around lively on Noah's palm like a fairy. A moment later, Noah waved his palm gently. The blue flame was shot out from his palm, surrounding the cauldron. The primordial flame swiftly raised the temperature of the icy cold cauldron as the pearl-white surface slowly turned bright orange. Noak kept his palm pointed at the cauldron until the orange glow turned bright blue. At the moment, the cauldron looked as though it was carved out of a giant sapphire stone. Under the control of Noah, the blue flame suppressed its temperature obediently. It did not pose the slightest resistance. After the fire swirled around the cauldron for a few more minutes, Noah slowly took a red claw-like ingredient from the table and dropped it in the cauldron. Immediately, a puff of green mist shot out from the cauldron as Noah placed another ingredient into the cauldron. His movements were slow and steady as a single misstep could result in the cauldron exploding in his face. Each time Noah dropped an ingredient into the cauldron, a green puff of mist shot out from within. To refine a pill or a potion, the ingredients must be purified to a certain degree. Sometimes, even if the purity was just a tad bit less, it could result in the refining process failing. Hence, an alchemist must know the properties of an ingredient and when to take it out from the fire. Otherwise, the pill or potion would have less purity or completely dissolve after coming out of the fire. Fortunately, Noah possessed the needed knowledge about the ingredients in the formula. Thus, no explosion had happened yet. So he's training him to fight me more than alchemy, Michael thought when he noticed Noah's slow refining skills. Michael felt as though he was watching a sloth refining a pill. It had been 15 minutes, still Noah didn't even extract the essence from the ingredients. While extracting the essence, Noah glanced at his two sides to notice Jennifer and Leylon had similar serious faces as him. However, their movements did not show any signs of being flustered. They may look serious but did not sweat like most alchemists in the arena. Both Leylon and Jennifer had everything under control. Bang! Just as Noah withdrew his gaze, a cauldron on a jade not far away exploded into pieces. However, a golden light appeared around the table, sucking the fire before it could harm the alchemist. Following the cauldron explosion, the jade mirror placed within the table let out bright red light, signifying the elimination. Although the golden light saved the alchemist, unfortunately, it didn't save his hair. The man's face had streaks of ash as he stood there foolishly watching the flickering red light with a stunned look on his face. A long while later, he finally cursed out loud before leaving the platform. As the man walked past Noah, Noah was surprised because he had met him before. When Noah met the man, he was a 3-star alchemist in Kingdom Dreidel. A pity. Noah laughed somewhat gloatingly in his heart. He then threw aside the small interlude and continued to extract the essence from the ingredients one at a time. While Noah was extracting the essence, Michael talked to Eve, getting an idea about what was going on in especially in Nagaland. As time slowly flowed by, the jade mirrors repeatedly flashed red lights in the arena. Whenever the red light flickered, one left the arena with either a sad or a mad face. While the test was quite difficult, one could say that alchemists who participated in the competition were people with great skills. Apart from the eliminated alchemists, many silently continued to refine the pill so they could move to the next round. After nearly half of the sand within that ghostly hourglass had fallen, Noah finally formed colorful beads of essence above the cauldron. Even though Noah refined the pill slower than Michael expected, he did not waste any ingredients. The next thing was to merge the colorful beads into a ball of essence and turn them into the burn healer pill. Compared to the extracting part, combining was the trickiest and required absolute focus. A slight deviation in focus would result in failure, and Noah would have to start from scratch again. Knowing the last step's importance, Noah closed his eyes for a moment, canceling all the noises around him. Then he opened his eyes with his mind completely focused on the essence beads. Finally, he exhaled and pulled his hands together as the essence beads floating in the air slowly moved towards each other. The blue flames gradually faded away as Noah pulled the beads closer and closer to each other. He felt the beads resisting as the same poles of magnets. It took a little bit of raw strength for Noah to merge them. Nonetheless, Noah showed no signs of struggle. On the contrary, he looked just as calm as ever. Why is he taking so long? Eve asked Michael. After talking for some time, Eve felt comfortable with Michael. Hence, she whispered to Michael, slightly leaning towards him, he's trying to merge all the beads at one go, instead one by one like the others, Michael explained to Eve. He had to say, she became a good friend in such a short amount of time. When he travels to R, Eve would definitely welcome him with open arms, not literally of course. With her help, he could expand his business empire and sect to R. But, for now, he focused on two things, assassinating Tanulia for Peyton and judging the competition. He is a fool to try that, Gabriel snickered. It's way too early for us to judge him, Lord Gabriel, Adevan defended Noah as Edith frowned from behind. Then, she closed her eyes and began to pray for Noah silently. The sand within the enormous hourglass swiftly scattered down. Sponsored content. Visit Rietal. Me for extra chapters. Ding. Leylon, who struggled to merge the last bead, finally succeeded. As soon as the beads became one orb of purple liquid, Leylon once again conjured the emerald green flames and kept the orb above the flame for it to harden into a pill. Gradually, the purple ball shrunk until it became the size of a tablet. Additionally, the pill radiated a bright glow, unlike the pills concocted by the other alchemists. That's how you do it. The pride on his face was difficult to hide as he banged the table loud enough for everyone to lose their focus for a moment. Michael frowned, looking at his actions. But since the other judges remained silent, he didn't raise any concern. Done. Jennifer raised her voice and revealed the purple people looking the same as Leyland's pill to the spectators. Good, Eve murmured. In her voice, Michael could sense the joy and pride. Time is almost up. Alred stared at Noah in the center spot, who was still yet to merge the beads. On the other hand, Aishan looked at the ghostly sand in the hourglass that had almost completely fallen. His hand abruptly tightened. Within the large arena, countless gazes landed in the middle where Noah was. They then eyed the sand in the hourglass that was splashing down. All of the spectators wanted to know if Noah, who stood in the center, attracting the most attention, would be able to complete the test. What do you think, Ghost? Eve asked curiously Michael, who was still looking at Noah with a calm face. Unlike the rest, Michael was sure Noah would finish the pill and surprise everyone with his purity level. He will surprise everyone, Michael said, calming Edith's nerves. The very little sand within the hourglass quietly descended. Then, at the very last moment, the last piece of sand rolled down. A pitiful sound came from the audience and the VIP seats. The blue flames suddenly shot out of Noah's hand and enveloped the beads. As soon as the blue flames disappeared, a round pill flew out at the very last moment, radiating dazzling bright light. Noah's pill glowed brighter compared to Leyland's and Jennifer's. The instant the pill landed on his palm, the little remaining sand finally fell. Hundreds of red lights in the arena, behind those alchemists who had still not finished refining the pill, lit up. Disappointedly looking at the flashing red light, those alchemists smiled bitterly and took back their respective cauldrons. Then, with disappointed looks, they exited the square. Standing behind the jade table, Noah looked at the contestants leaving the arena one after another. This was just the first round of the competition, yet 1/3 of the participants had been eliminated unexpectedly. He let out a sigh as he thought about the difficulty of the competition. Playing with the pill in his hand, Noah turned his head to the nearby Leylon, whose face was full of bright smiles. Despite having less brighter pill than Noah, Leylon seemed arrogant and proud because he finished first. He looked at Noah with his pill steadily grasped in his hand, and said a smile, "You truly have good luck. Even with the primordial flame, you only managed to refine the pill at the last moment." However, Noah just responded to Leylon with a calm smile, "It's not so important who starts the game but who finishes it." In this grand competition, attended by countless outstanding alchemists, refining with the fastest speed in an undeniable skill, Leylon laughed. He was unwilling to let Noah's higher purity pill outshine his achievements. "If you say so," Noah shrugged as he no longer wished to quarrel with Leylon. Instead, he turned his head toward Jennifer and smiled. Then, looking up at the VIP seats, he saw Hendrix waiting for his turn to speak. Sigh. In the VIP seats, Aishan heavily exhaled. He used his sleeves to wipe off the cold sweat on his forehead. Why does this brat have to be so dramatic every time? Chapter 501 Demonstration. Hendrix stood at a spot on the front of the platform. He looked down from the top and watched the entire open ground. His gaze swept across the arena, looking at the place where a third of the competitors had been eliminated. Congratulations to all of you who are still standing. You have more or less successfully passed the test for the first round. However, the round is not over, Hendrix said with a smile. Alchemy is a complex art. Some alchemists may have concocted a pill that might look like a high-purity pill. However, they might not have the desired healing properties. Hence, we will check whether the pill has achieved the required level. The slightly hoarse voice of Hendrix slowly sounded in everyone's ears. Now, can all the competitors please search for a green-colored button located at the bottom left corner of your jade table? Hearing this, Noah looked at the table until his gaze finally stopped at the bottom left corner, which was not very noticeable. He was somewhat stunned to see a few different colored small buttons scattered there. His finger followed the instructions and stopped on the green button before pressing it down gently. As he pressed the button, the bright, clean rock table suddenly trembled slightly. On its surface, a slate was slowly protruding out. Once it was raised by around half a foot, it sank slightly and finally revealed a small hole. Place the pill you have refined into the hole in the table. If you have achieved the requirement, a green light will flash on the jade mirror and red if your pill has failed to meet the requirements. In case of red light, you will be eliminated from the competition, and I request the alchemists to leave the premises in a peaceful manner. Hendrix paused for a moment to let everything he said sink into their heads. Additionally, the brighter the green light, the higher the purity of the pill. On the other hand, the brighter the red light, the farther you went from the actual burn healer. But fret not, at least your pill can be used to satisfy hunger. Hearing the humorous joke that sounded in the air above the open ground, the spectators laughed from the spectators' stand. Everyone begin, Hendrix said as the alchemists prepared to test the pills they concocted. As he caressed the round pill with his fingers, Noah calmly stared at the hole in the table. He did not hurriedly throw the pill in. Instead, his gaze swept around him. At this moment, some alchemists had already begun throwing their medicinal pills into the testing machine. Not long after that happened, the arena suddenly became very colorful. Strong and weak green and red lights interweaved as they glittered. Each brought either joy or gloominess to the alchemists' faces. Bullshit. A two-star alchemist slammed the jade table looking at the flickering red light. He gritted his teeth, and under countless people's gazes, he quickly put his cauldron in his space ring and ascended to the air. What the fuck is this round? You actually gave us the wrong formula and asked us to decode and concoct it within 30 minutes. This is a joke. Noah saw another alchemist smashing the table and leaving the area while cursing the judges. For a few minutes, Noah continued watching the alchemists leaving the arena until he heard Jennifer's melodious voice draw his attention. Master Noah, why don't we do it together? Jennifer smiled, fiddling with the pill in her hand. Anything will do. Noah indifferently shrugged his shoulders. He eyed Leylon, whose eyes were fixated on him. Following Jennifer's request, Leylon, Noah, and Jennifer simultaneously threw their pills into the hole. As the three of them threw in their medicinal pills, every spectator on the stand turned their gazes to the arena's center where the trio was standing. Everyone wanted to know who concocted a better pill. Bang, bang, bang. The jade mirror was a little quiet. Then, a moment later, a slightly muffled sound erupted, and 3 bright streaks of green light abruptly shot out from the jade tables towards the sky. The density of any of the green lights was clearly much denser than any of the green lights that had appeared in the open ground before. All 3 streaks of light looked the same, except when looked closer, the streak of light shooting out of Noah's table looked slightly denser. You were right, Eve said to Michael as Michael predicted Noah would concoct a better pill than the rest. Your sister needs better control over her fire. If she had, she would have matched Noah, Michael whispered to Eve without letting Alred hear him. In a short amount of time, he had become a good friend to Eve. Something about her made him feel closer to her and treat her as his friend. Master Noah really got the better of us. Although you finished your pill at the last second, yours is the purest. I admit you won this round. Jennifer watched the light streak coming from Noah's table with sparkling eyes. She then shook her head and sighed. I am pretty sure mine is only 1 or 2% purer than yours, Noah smiled. Then, turning to the other side, he saw Leyland's dark face. Instead of uttering any words, the corner of Leyland's mouth twitched. He inhaled deeply and turned his head over, staring viciously at the jade mirror which was flashing green light. His heart suddenly had an impulse to smash it to pieces. That young man has a bright future, Hendrix said with a smile as he observed the 3 streaks of light. Ghost, why don't you demonstrate to them how you would concoct the pill? Eve asked loud enough for all the judges to hear her. For a moment, Michael had the urge to hug Eve and give her kisses on the cheek. If anyone should, it's Lord Hendrix. Since he's the best among us, Gabriel calmly said without showing his hatred for Ghost. Everyone who knew Gabriel knew he would hate anyone who stole his spotlight. Considering Ghost dethroned him as the #1 alchemist in Elon and Azair, naturally, Gabriel loathed Michael to the core. They knew how Gabriel would think even if Gabriel didn't show it openly. I have to disagree with you, Lord Gabriel. He has reached a height I never could at his age. It's only a matter of time before he surpasses all of us and becomes the #1 alchemist in the world. Hendrix turned his gaze from the participants to Gabriel. It's settled then. Ghost, please give them a demonstration. Alred gestured at Michael to go to the ground level so the participants could see Michael in action. Everyone, Hendrix clapped as the entire arena became silent once again. Before we move on to the second round, let one of the judges demonstrate how to concoct the blood healer pill using the same ingredients as you. Michael slowly stood up from his seat as the crowd immediately became excited. This is so exciting, yee. Sponsored content. Visit Rietal. Me for extra chapters. I can't wait. How long will it take him to make the pill? The crowd began to chitter-chatter while the participants looked up to see Michael descending from the VIP seats to the ground. Please, use my table, Jennifer quickly said before even Michael's feet could touch the ground. Under thousands of gazes, Michael strolled to Jennifer's table, where he saw a batch of ingredients lying on the table. At the moment, Michael was everyone's center of attention. From the VIP seatings, Eve stood up from her seat and came to the edge to see Michael in action. Look closer. I will try to concoct the pill slowly. Michael enhanced his voice through arch energy. Thus, his voice sounded loud and clear throughout the arena. Miss Jennifer, may I? Instead of conjuring his alchemy flames and directly extracting the essence from the ingredients, as usual, Michael asked for Jennifer's cauldron. Lord Hendrix. Michael looked up at Hendrix as he clapped his hands to turn the ghostly hourglass upside down. Ding! The hourglass began to rain sand down with a loud bang. With a calm face, Michael conjured his alchemy flames. The emerald green flames disappointed many as they expected Ghost to possess a different color flame. However, Hendrix's calm eyes perplexed, sensing weird energy from the flames surrounding Jennifer's crimson red cauldron. Other than Hendrix, none sensed anything different about Michael's flames. Under their gazes, Michael controlled the fire in one hand while picking up the first ingredient in the other. However, before any green mist could appear from the cauldron like when the others refined the ingredient, Michael put another ingredient into the cauldron. Whoa, he's extracting the essence from the ingredients at the same time. Adevan gasped as Michael put all the ingredients into the cauldron instead of one by one. In a few blinks of an eye, colorful beads emerged from the cauldron and hovered above the cauldron. Many gasped in shock, and even Leylon and Noah couldn't help being stunned by his skills. Michael made it look simple, but as an alchemist, they both knew how hard it is to extract essence from all the ingredients at the same time. Wow. Jennifer stared at his every single move without blinking an eye. Her jaw dropped a couple of inches, just like the rest. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 2,000 badass points. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 1,000 badass points. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 1,200 badass points. The badass points rapidly increased as the notification sound continued to ring in his head. At the moment, they looked closer at the beads, wondering whether he would merge them one by one or merge them all like Noah. To everyone's surprise, Michael moved his palms closer and closer as the beads began to merge with each other. Noah's method was difficult, but not for Michael. It only took him less than a minute to merge all the beads into an orb of essence. Noah saw no signs of struggle on Ghost's face. The next moment, the emerald green flames appeared once again, surrounding the orb of essence. The flames swirled around the orb for a few seconds before disappearing out of existence. When the fire disappeared, a glowing purple pill hovered in the air, radiating a sweet fragrance. Since Leilon, Noah, and Jennifer stood closer to Ghost, they could smell the fragrance coming from the pill. Under 2 minutes, Aishan gasped after he saw the hourglass. Then, just like him, countless sounds of people gasping reverberated in the arena. They were all stunned beyond words. While his speed stupefied them, Michael flicked his wrist as the pill went straight into the hole in Jennifer's table. Then, unlike never before, the table began to tremble, producing a whistling sound. Boom! Then, a muffled burst sounded from the table as a bright streak of green light shot towards the sky. The streak of light turned everyone and everything green with its brightness. It was several times brighter and denser than Noah's streak of light. "That's how you make a burn healer in 70 seconds, Michael calmly said, shocking everyone in the arena. Chapter 502. End of the second round. After everything was said and done, Michael ascended to the air and returned to his seat in the VIP seats, leaving the participants and the spectators stunned. And he was thrilled with the number of badass points he received. Olivia was clapping and bouncing up and down in joy from the spectators. Unlike the battle tournaments, the judges gave no break to the alchemists. Clapping his hands again, Hendrix drew everyone's attention to him. "Alright, since everyone has completed the test and witnessed what you can do when you increase your skills, let us start the second round. Please press the red button on the bottom right of the table." Hearing Hendrix, Noah moved his finger to the small round red button on the bottom right. As he pressed the button, the jade table suddenly trembled slightly. Then, the hole in the center disappeared as a pile of neatly stacked ingredients and a golden parchment slowly appeared on the clear, sleek table. The second round requires all of you to follow the formula on your table and brew the potion. Just like the first round, you have 2 batches of ingredients, so you can only fail once. If you have finished your ingredients in the process of brewing the potion, you will be eliminated? Huh? Hearing this, Noah was at a loss. Creasing his brows, Noah picked up the scroll and slowly pulled it open to read the contents. Unlike the scroll he read in the first round, the scroll in his hand contained neither complex nor wrong steps. After memorizing the formula, Noah looked around to see everyone reading the scroll without batting an eye. Meanwhile, on the VIP seating, each judge received the same scroll as the participants. Revitalization Potion. Michael shared the scroll with Eve as she moved closer to him to see the contents written on the scroll. Throughout a cultivator's life, they would consume countless pills, potions, and foods on a daily basis. Little by little, they would create impurities to clog their body's energy vines, resulting in slower cultivation. There were many ways to unclog the energy vines and purify the body from within, and one of those ways was intaking a revitalization potion or pills. In the Majestic, revitalization pills were one of the fastest-selling products. Michael sold 1 pill for 9,000 gold coins. Currently, the guild has given the formula for free like candies. However, Michael did not worry about the formula because unless Hendrix and other 6-star alchemists began to sell the revitalization pills in bulk, his business wouldn't be affected. 12 ingredients? Seems a bit more, don't you think? Eve whispered to Michael, the number is not the only problem they have. They need absolute focus and delicate touch to extract the essence. It was challenging. Unless one has total control over their alchemy fire, the ingredient would be burnt to ashes before they could extract the essence, Michael explained to Eve. On the ground level, Noah raised his head, looking around him only to find that Jennifer, Leilon, and the others had their eyebrows slightly knit together. Clearly, they were very inexperienced. Else, they wouldn't be thinking it's simple to brew the revitalization potion. Good thing I have practiced controlling heaven's flame, Noah mumbled softly. We shall now begin the second round. You have an hour. As Hendrix's voice echoed through the arena, the ghostly hourglass materialized again in the air. After setting down on his seat, Hendrix looked at Noah, who had already raised his flame and began to refine the ingredients one by one. Speed and control, young man, he muttered under his breath. Many alchemists were grinning as they thought the formula was simple. Moreover, they had 1 hour to brew one potion. It was a simple enough task in their minds. Hence, they conjured the flames with bright smiles. Of course, among so many alchemists, there were some cautious ones who were surprised upon looking at the simple test and hesitated. But they just shoved the doubt and hesitation to the corner of their minds and began to refine the ingredients. With absolute focus, Noah conjured his bright blue flame. It took the cauldron a few more minutes to reach sufficient temperature. Afterward, Noah slowly began to throw in the medicinal ingredients one by one. His pupils constricted as he slowly began to refine. Are you participating in the aqua auction, Eve? While everyone was busy refining the ingredients, Michael asked Eve. Since they were friends, they naturally addressed each other by their first names. Yes. I reckon you're coming too. I will issue an arrest warrant if you don't come to Voldegard Mansion in Thera. She squinted her eyes as Michael smiled. Definitely. Here, take this. With a flick of her delicate wrist, Eve took out a silver medallion in the shape of V. We can go to the auction together. Voldegards have our own place in the Aqua Palace. Michael put the medallion in the system storage with a nod. Meanwhile, as they were refining the ingredients, the noise from the 2 seating galleries at the sides also gradually decreased. Numerous gazes swept over the alchemists in the open square, looking at them without batting an eye. As time slowly flew, many red lights flicked in the arena. Michael saw many alchemists had burnt all their ingredients while trying to extract the essence. But, like Michael told Eve, one needed absolute control over their fire and focus. Those who lacked either naturally got eliminated from the competition. On the other hand, some of the competitors whose abilities were quite good had already refined the ingredients needed. After hesitating for a moment, they clenched their teeth and tried to merge the essence, beginning the final part of the refinement. Noah's gaze focused on the ingredients that were boiling within the cauldron. Because he was worried about the possibility of some problems suddenly arising, he took his time cautiously refining each ingredient. As Noah finished extracting the essence of the 10th ingredient, Leylon and Jennifer finished extracting the last essence. Just when they were about to start merging the essence beads, a soft muffled explosion sounded not far away from the trio. Hearing the sound, Noah raised his eyes to take a look. At that spot, an alchemist was foolishly staring at black smoke coming from the cauldron. Clearly, this was a result of a failed refining attempt. What the? I followed the instructions to the word. How can it happen? Why did I fail? The alchemist stuttered, trembling in shock. A moment later, he turned the cauldron upside down, dropping a pile of ashes. Taking a long deep breath, the alchemist began refining the last ingredient batch. As more and more time passed, numerous soft muffled sounds from the medicinal cauldrons occurred one after another. The alchemists who failed stared at the black smoke coming from the cauldrons dumbfounded. Dun, dun. All of a sudden, Noah heard the muffled explosion sounding from his side. He then turned his head to see Leylon and Jennifer standing behind their tables with completely stunned faces. One could see dark lines on both their foreheads as they stared at the black smoke coming out of their cauldrons. Countless sounds of gasps emerged from the spectators' stand. They did not expect Leylon and Jennifer to fail. Even the elders in the VIP seatings were not an exception to this. She failed. Even clenched her fist tight looking at her younger sister's smoking cauldron. Sponsored content. Visit Rietal. Me for extra chapters. As I said, she needs more control over her fire. Following the shocking turn of events, many red lights began to flicker across the arena, indicating the elimination. Almost 1/3 of the alchemists destroyed their last batch of ingredients. By doing so, they left with no ingredients to refine. Hence, they could only walk out of the arena. Fuck. Why did it fail? My control over the flame was clearly very good, an alchemist shouted before leaving the arena. Similar events happened throughout the arena as the judges calmly observed them. Looking at many getting eliminated, Noah didn't dare to lose focus. When Noah began to raise his flame and perform the merger, some of the alchemists around him, including Leylon and Jennifer, threw their gazes over. Under the circumstances where they all failed, they wanted to see if Noah could succeed where they failed. Noah ignored the surrounding gazes as he put all his attention into controlling heaven's flame. Under the grilling of the blue flame, Noah extracted the essence from the last ingredient. Each essence bead emerged from the cauldron and sparkled in the air. Every 12 beads were floating in a row in the air from blue to pink. Try merging them one by one, Noah said in a low-pitched voice, only loud enough for Jennifer and Leylon to hear. Noah broke sweat on his forehead and merged the last bead in the row with the bead beside. Hearing Noah's tip, Jennifer and Leylon conjured their flames again to refine the ingredients. Michael, who sat leisurely on the VIP seat, got bored of seeing the youngsters failing so miserably. Thus, he focused on the spy cam he placed on pirate Captain Corey. Currently, he could see her navigating through a treacherous storm, and in the distance, Michael noticed a vague outline of another ship. Sabrina. It was clear to Michael that Corey was chasing Sabrina's ship. Apparently, she had something that the vampires needed. Until they get what they want, Michael knew they wouldn't let Sabrina go. The judges and spectators observed the alchemists without batting an eye. But because of Noah's focus and experience, he was the first one to merge the beads. As soon as all the beads merged into an orb, the orb of essence radiated a sweet fragrance along with a bright glow. Shit, he's about to finish. As Leylon sniffed the faint fragrance emanating from the essence orb, he growled inside. At this moment, countless people's hearts were hung in their throats. He can finish it. Aishan's shriveled palm tightly held the guardrail. Unlike Michael, the rest were too focused and excited to see the alchemists in action. The silent atmosphere in the arena continued until Noah kicked the table, sending the vial into the air. With a flick of his wrist, Noah guided the essence into the vial and covered the vial with his heaven's flame. Only when all the essence went into the vial did Noah slowly exhale. He raised his head as a faint smile appeared on his calm face. Under the thousands of gazes, Noah remained with a dark red vial in his hand. Following Noah's success, almost 15 minutes later, the green light of Jennifer and Leylon was lit up. The two of them placed their potions on the table and exchanged glances, sighing in relief. After the trio, a few more streaks of green light shot out towards the sky from the arena. Unfortunately, the red streaks of light overwhelmed the green light. When the sand within the hourglass completely fell, only a little over 100 people still remained in the arena. The rest of the people had already been completely expelled during these 2 rounds. As Hendrix clapped his hands, Noah slowly raised his head. His gaze landed on Hendrix, who revealed a friendly smile at Noah. After they concluded the second round, the next event was to once again test for the potions. Just like the first round, when everyone placed their potions into the hold, Noah's table produced a brighter streak of light, followed by Jennifer and Leylon. Once the test was completed, the sky had already gradually darkened. A crescent moon slowly appeared at the edge of the sky, bathing the city of Oxshore beneath. Looking at the daylight slowly fading away, Aishan stepped forward from his seat. Everyone, we will stop the competition for the day and start the final round at 10 tomorrow morning. Everyone, please take a rest and arrive here 30 minutes before. With Aishan's announcement, the long day of competition finally came to an end. Everyone in the VIP seating planned to take a rest, just like the participants except Michael. He had something important to do, like contacting the Alpha Guardian. Chapter 503 The Assassination Plan is in motion. Don't forget to check out Thegesis. Soon Michael will have a crossover chapters with each MC of my novels ***. Where are you staying? When Michael was about to stand up from his seat, Eve asked. I assume the guild booked a place for us. Forgive these old bones for forgetting. Here, the key to your accommodation. You will be escorted by our guards when we reach outside. Aishan flicked his wrist, taking out a golden card from his space ring that had the words green leaves embossed in beautiful calligraphy. Wonderful, Michael responded with a smile as Eve also stood to follow Aishan and the other judges. Instead of leaving, Edith flew to the ground level to meet Noah. Michael noticed Edith but didn't mind her. The last thing he needed was to meddle in Noah's harem. As the judges walked out of the door and stepped into the hall behind the VIP seatings lit brightly with a giant chandelier, they were welcomed by the armed guards of the Aqua Clan. In addition to the Aqua Clan, the guards wearing blue robes stood in a neat line waiting for Eve and Jennifer. Lady Eve, the guards quickly bowed when they saw Eve. There was a hint of shock within their eyes, because they had never seen Eve walk so closer to a guy before. Now I have to find my friend, Michael said. Who? Teacher. Just as Michael was about to answer Eve, Olivia entered the hall from the other side escorted by a couple of armed guards of the Aqua Clan. The Aqua Clan guards didn't let her approach the judges, so she kept waving her hand at Michael. Let her in, Michael signaled to the guards. As soon as the guards stepped away from Olivia's path, she came running toward Michael. Then when she saw Hendrix, she was flustered. Lord Hendrix Gardner. I am a big admirer of yours, she stuttered, kneading her hands, looking at Olivia. Hendrix warmly smiled. I am glad, young lady. So you're learning from Ghost? Olivia bobbed her head up and down. Yes, you are a fortunate young lady to have a teacher like him. With a nod and a pat on Olivia's shoulder, Hendrix walked away from them with Aishan, Alred, and Gabriel before Olivia could talk to the others. At the moment, only 5 Aqua Clan guards, Eve, Olivia, Ghost, and Eve's guards remained in the hall. Lady Eve, turning her gaze away from Hendrix and the other grandmasters, Olivia slightly bent her waist. Lady Eve, Olivia greeted Eve with a respectful tone. Eve, Olivia, Michael simply pointed at Olivia. Pleasure to meet you, Olivia. Eve surprised the guards yet again by extending her hand toward Olivia. Pleasure is all mine, Lady Eve. Olivia shook her hand. Please, call me Eve. Eve gently smiled and said, I think we should leave. I have to find accommodation for you. What? You have no place to stay? Eve was slightly surprised. We just arrived at Oxshore this morning, and it's my fault for not finding a place. Olivia scratched her head. You're coming with me, Eve quickly said, shocking Michael and Olivia. But don't make me call my guards. Edith coldly chuckled, but Michael could tell if they disagreed, she would really use the guards. I have literally no choice then, Olivia chuckled back as they began to walk out of the giant hall. When they stepped outside, the streets were still full of people. Along with the full moon in the sky, the street lights powered with runes and chandelier light peeking through the glass windows lit up the city and gave the city a festive charm. Michael felt the cold breeze brushing past him and noticed a couple of carriages, including Eve's, waiting on the street. You go ahead. I have to wait for my sister. Since Michael had something to do alone, he did not linger around any longer. See you tomorrow then. He nodded before following the armed guards to the brown carriage. As the guards noticed Michael approaching, they opened the carriage door to reveal the red-cushioned interior. Michael stepped into the carriage to see a mini table with various beverages set on it. Additionally, he noticed a golden orb hanging above, lighting the interior. There was nothing else in the carriage besides the table and the orb. Sitting comfortably in the cushioned seat, Michael leaned back. Then he closed his eyes, focusing on the spy cams in Alpha Guardian Tenulia's warship. Currently, in a brightly lit room, several figures who were dressed fancily stood surrounding a bed on which Tiriana curled up into a ball. Those who were close to her could hear her sob and see her reddened face. Tenulia sat beside Tiriana, brushing her head gently. Tell me, what's wrong with her? The moment Tenulia's face turned away from Tiriana, her motherly looked transformed into an enraged predator. The rest of them in the room shuddered just by looking at the killing intent in her eyes. Noticing the silence, Tenulia trembled. She's been vomiting blood non-stop and crying in pain. There's definitely something wrong with her. Yet, you idiots found nothing. She snarled at the healers in front of her. We thoroughly examined her and everything she came into contact with Alpha Guardian. But the leading healer, who was a blonde elf in golden robes, shivered while talking and didn't finish his sentence. Incompetent idiots. Go to Ar and bring me the heavenly alchemists before I lose my patience. Tenulia threatened them with gritted teeth. Hearing her threat, they all trembled. Soon, they quickly ran away from the room, leaving Tenulia and Tiriana in the room. Just bear the pain, Tiri. The alchemists will be here shortly. Tenulia kept brushing Tiriana's head like a mother. Lots of work, vampires. Tiriana blurted out a few words, fighting through the pain. Sure, we are taking care of it, Tenulia said with a smile to calm Tiriana down. Unfortunately, the outside situation wasn't good at all. The existence of vampires and the news spread across the continent that guardians tried to hide vampires' existence brought a storm down on the guild. Currently, they were facing pressure from every direction. Her team was still investigating who leaked the information about the vampires to the royal news. She suspected Peyton, but she had no proof to back her doubts. As far as Tenulia could tell, Peyton worshipped the guild and stood to gain nothing by abolishing the guild's reputation. Creech. Suddenly, Tenulia heard something from behind. She turned back with lightning-quick speed to see a piece of paper on the ground beneath a stool. She stood up from the bed, walked to the paper, and picked it up. Her brows furrowed when her gaze swept across the piece of yellow paper. Then, she put the piece of paper back on the stool and opened the wooden door nearby to leave the room. Sponsored content. Visit Rietal. Me for extra chapters. As soon as she stepped out of the room, she made her way to hall, where she saw several guardians and a girl sitting behind a crescent-shaped marble table. Did I receive any packages today? Tenulia asked the silver-haired elf. Yes, Alpha Guardian. We sent the package to the Rune Masters and waiting for them to finish checking it. Bring me the package now. Tenulia slightly raised her voice as the girl shuddered. Yes, Alpha Guardian. The girl didn't dare to remind the Alpha Guardian of the protocols. Instead, she just bobbed her head, opened the door behind her, and disappeared to bring the package to Tenulia. Several minutes later, the girl returned carrying a wooden box. Everyone leave. Tenulia's voice reverberated in the hall, attracting the guardians' attention. They gawked at each other and the stoic face of Tenulia for a moment before leaving the hall. After they left the hall, Tenulia slowly opened the box to see a parchment and a vial with sparkling silver liquid on crimson-red cloth. Tenulia picked up the parchment. For a few moments, she scanned the parchment and the box with her senses until she found no threats. Only then did she open the parchment. Greetings, Alpha Guardian. We remained in darkness, harming no one. But you and your guardians decided to expose us to the light. You shouldn't have done that. Because of you, your best friend is now suffering. Suppose you don't personally come to apologize to us alone at the location marked down below. In that case, your friend will experience the most excruciating death the elves have ever seen. The vial contains something that will lessen her pain. Consider this a courtesy of our great nation of Nightwalkers, aka vampires, as you named us. Your friend has 2 days to live. So your clock is ticking, Alpha Guardian. Tenulia's body trembled as she read the parchment. Just as she finished reading the letter, Tiriana's scream echoed through the warship. Immediately, Tenulia hurried to the room, and when she reached the room, she saw Tiriana puking blood, rolling on the floor while screaming in agony. Subconsciously, Tenulia picked up the potion before leaving the hall. Tirai. Tenulia dashed at Tiriana. Tiriana kept screaming in agony when Tenulia sat beside her and put her head on her lap. Without Tenulia's control, her eyes watered. Tanu! Tiriana screamed as blood gushed out of her nostrils, eyes, and ears. At that moment, many guardians who heard Tiriana's scream flocked into the room. Alpha Guardian. Among those who entered the room were the healers who had previously left the room. They quickly rushed to her side and knelt beside Tiriana. The blonde healer quickly retrieved a sparkling blue potion from his space ring and forced it down Tiriana's throat. Since it was the healing potion brewed by Ghost, Tenulia allowed the healer to give the potion. It was the only thing that lessened Tiriana's pain. However, unlike before, Tiriana didn't stop screaming. Ever after the blonde elf chugged an entire bottle of healing potion down her throat, they couldn't stop Tiriana from screaming. It's not working. The healer stuttered as Tenulia saw Tiriana's eyes closing. The healer immediately placed his hand on Tiriana's throat only to sense her pulses slowing down. Alpha Guardian, her pulse, it's dropping. When Tanulia heard his words, her heart skipped a beat. She held Tiriana tightly. She is dying, Alpha Guardian, the healer gravely said. All the guardians broke into a sweat while Tanulia's muscles went rigid. She couldn't even move a muscle because of the overwhelming grief. Finally, tears broke out of her eyes and rolled out on her rosy cheeks. The potion. Tanulia remembered the potion in her hand. Alpha Guardian, if we don't find a cure to whatever is happening to her, she will die within a few minutes. We don't have enough time. The healer swallowed his fear and explained the situation to Tanulia. Tiri. Tanulia's hand shivered, bringing the potion to Tiriana's mouth. As an Alpha Guardian, she was trained to make quick decisions because a second delay would cost lives in her position. Hence, she decided to give the potion she received rather than gambling with Tiriana's life. However, if she didn't give the potion, it was inevitable that Tiriana would die. Alpha Guardian, what is that? The healer asked Tanulia. Instead of answering him, she just opened the vial and gently poured the liquid into her mouth. Surprisingly, the moment the potion touched Tyreria's tongue, the healer noticed her pulse speed up. Alpha Guardian, her pulse is improving. Tanulia heaved a sigh of relief as she emptied the potion into Tiriana's mouth. Chapter 50. For the final round after Tiriana drank the potion, the rosiness returned to her. The healer quickly examined her body only to see her vital signs such as pulse, arch energy circulation, and breathing had become normal. Nonetheless, Tiriana remained unconscious. Fortunately, they learned she had fallen asleep after suffering so much. Seeing Tiriana peacefully sleeping on her lap, Tanulia knew what she had to do. Go set a course to the Maven, Tanulia ordered, the Alpha Guardians staring at her. Hearing the order, the Guardians obediently bowed their heads before leaving the room. They were trained to obey orders, not question them. That was why none of them dared to ask why they had to go to Maven, a kingdom in the southern continent. The next day when the sky turned bright, the flourishing city of Oxshore woke up along with the thousands of citizens. Only a few minutes after the first sun ray emerged from the horizon, the citizens began to flow through the streets. The place within the city, which was most crowded and lively today, was the arena. Since today was the grand finale for the individual competition, the number of people flocking to the arena doubled. As time elapsed, the entrance doors of the guild slowly opened as the sun rose. Immediately, the mass of people outside began flooding in like tides. Noah entered through the participants' entrance as yesterday and walked until he arrived at the ground scattered with jade tables. He lifted his eyes and looked around, only to find that Leylon and Jennifer had actually arrived earlier than him. Besides the two of them, several competitors passed the 2 rounds of the competition yesterday. The group of alchemists were conversing and smiling with one another. When Noah arrived, everyone, who appeared to be discussing something softly, suddenly lowered their voices significantly. Yesterday Noah shocked everyone with his skills. In their minds, he was the leading horse to win the competition. Master Noah, you are quite early, Jennifer greeted Noah and strolled towards her place as Noah walked by her side. And you're earlier than me. Noah did not like her attitude when they first met. She belonged to the Voldegard family, which even his teacher told him to mess with. Besides, she was also Grandmaster Alred's disciple. Hence, Noah did not appear to be too cold. He just smiled back and greeted casually. Did you rest well, Master Noah? We all need to be in our peak state, Jennifer softly asked. Of course, Noah nodded. However, he did not rest as she thought. He was busy surveying the arena, the place where Hendrix stayed, and the guild studying all the ways one could try to assassinate Hendrix. According to Aishan, the chances of assassinating Hendrix would go to near 0 after he leaves Azair. Hence, if one wanted to kill Hendrix, one had to try when he was in the arena. Don't hold back anything, Noah. Because I want. Lu Ling walked over to Noah only to challenge him. Looking at Leyland's smug face, Noah just responded with a smile. He'll have it no other way. On the VIP seatings, the judges and a group of elders and nobles gradually settled into their seats. When Noah looked over at them, Hendrix gave him a friendly smile. Noah's gaze swept across the VIP seats to find Edith waving at him while sitting behind Ghost in his usual black robes. Noah also noticed Eve, Jennifer's elder sister, conversing with Ghost like never before. Surprisingly, another green-haired girl sat beside Eve and Noah knew her. She was Ghost's disciple, Olivia Palmer. Recently his elder auntie told Noah that she had arranged for him a marriage to her friend's daughter. According to her, that marriage would further strengthen the Winston family. Since political marriages were pretty standard in this world, Noah didn't mind as long as the girl was okay with the marriage. Noah had no idea that girl was none other than Olivia. As time slowly flowed by, more and more competitors flooded into the open ground. Finally, all the competitors who had entered the ground went to the jade table they used yesterday. The alchemists who remained in the arena were the cream of the crop. Otherwise, they wouldn't have reached the final round. Reaching the final round would alone open many doors of opportunities for them as well as get them into the Alchemy Guild. Still, every single one of them wanted to win the competition and know the rewards for winning. When the bright sun was high in the sky, the seats had all filled with countless crowds. Clang! In an instant, a clear bell sound resonated through the open ground for a long time. The moment the bell sounded, Noah, who had his eyes tightly closed, opened them. He took a deep breath, calming his nerves before raising his head to look at the VIP seatings. Ladies and gentlemen, Hendrix spoke to the crowd on the high platform as his light gaze swept through the entire place. Instantly, the people stopped their ruckus and turned their focus to him. Today will be the last and final day of the individual competition. The finale will decide the victor. You all put so much effort and hardwood to reach this stage. There is only one obstacle standing in your way. I wish you all the best. According to Asian, Hendrix would stay 2 more days until the end of the group alchemy competition. Then, although Michael had better things to do, he could spend a day or 2 with Olivia, who longed for Michael's support. Moreover, she wanted him to witness her students in action. When Hendrix's voice fell, the crowd exploded into a thunderous roar, screaming as loud as they could in excitement. Noah rubbed his ears as they became numb by the deafening sound. He turned his head around to see Jennifer and Leylon calmly looking around the crowd. The latter, however, had a cold smile on his face. "This is my moment," Leylon snickered. He had been training for the competition for a long time. For him, failure wasn't an option. No matter what, he had to make his teacher proud. Clap. The thunderous clap echoed through the arena, instantaneously canceling all the noise. When the arena became silent, Hendrix began to explain about the final round. Unlike the previous 2 rounds, we won't provide you with any ingredient or formula. In other words, you must successfully brew a potion or concoct a pill of your choice to the best of your ability in under an hour. The alchemist who refined the pill or potion with high purity and gets the most votes from the judges will be crowned as the winner. Sponsored content. Visit Readle. Me for extra chapters. When the competitors in the arena heard Hendrix's clear voice, many felt excited, except for some who did not prepare any suitable formulas or had sufficient ingredients. If they failed, they only had to blame themselves for being careless and not prepared. As Noah's gaze swept all around him, he noticed Leylon's bright face. The latter was grinning, while Jennifer remained with her head held high as though she had absolute confidence in her formula and ability to refine something with a high purity level and miraculous effect. In the VIP seatings, Michael frowned slightly. To him, the round seemed yet again unfair. Among the competitors, some were 2-star alchemists and some were 3-star alchemists. Surprisingly, there were no 4-star alchemists among them as the few who competed were eliminated yesterday. So naturally, 3-star alchemists could refine a pill or a potion with a higher purity level than the 2-star alchemists. The ability to refine pure products what made them 3 stars in the first place. Hence, when asked to brew a potion or concoct a pill, whatever the 3-star alchemist makes would have a higher purity rate than a pill or potion made by a 2-star alchemist. In other words, the 2-star alchemists stood no chance against the 3-star alchemists. Remember, purity isn't the sole determinant in the final. Whatever you make should impress the judges and get their votes. Keep that in mind. As though Hendrix had sensed Michael's thoughts, he reminded the competitors. His words gave some comfort and courage to the 2-star alchemists. Since everyone is already familiar with the examination rules, Hendrix slowly raised his hand and abruptly waved it down on the high platform. A faint sound reverberated throughout the entire place. The final round will now begin. Just like before, the ghostly giant hourglass materialized in the air as the competitors immediately took out everything they needed from their space ring. From the audience seats, countless gazes stared intently at the over 100 competitors on the open ground below, waiting for their splendid performance today. After Hendrix went to sit on his chair, the trio in the center did not do anything. Instead, they coincidentally remained silent and mused with a frown, recalling everything they needed to know about the potion they were going to make. The silence persisted for nearly 10 minutes before Jennifer and Leylon took out their cauldron and a set of ingredients from their space ring. Hearing the sound of the cauldrons landing on the jade tables, Noah frowned as the cauldrons that the two pulled out were clearly not the same ones they used yesterday. Seeing the profound auras that were emitted from the ancient-looking jade cauldrons, it was clear that the cauldrons clearly belonged to the epic class. Item classes equals common, uncommon, rare, epic, legendary. They surpassed Noah's cauldron, which belonged to the rare class. That little brat, sitting beside Ghost, Eve mumbled. She took Grandpa's cauldron, Eve said with a helpless chuckle only loud enough for Michael and Olivia to hear. Better cauldron will definitely raise her odds to win, Olivia whispered to Olivia. She better win this. What do you think, Ghost? You're still betting on Noah? Michael nodded. If nothing dramatic happened, he knew Noah would win the competition easily because, unlike them, he knew Noah's secret. Lord Gabriel, is that the cauldron you used decades ago? Alred asked, pointing at Leyland's jade cauldron, which had a tint of redness to it. Yes, Gabriel responded with a simple nod. If my memory serves me right, you used it to take the champion's spot during that year's competition. It seems you're pretty confident in your student, Alred mused. He will win this. Gabriel's voice was full of confidence and trust. All the judges had already begun to bet on their favorites. Still, they had no idea the competition would become a butchery. Edith suddenly stood up, walking toward the door in the back while the judges and the nobles were observing the alchemists on the ground. Michael noticed Edith leaving but didn't pay any mind to her. Chapter 505 The massacre has begun in the spacious arena. The gentle breeze brushed past the people, cradling them with its chillness. Michael observed the alchemists showing no expression on his blank as a slate face. The pungent smell of herbs and fire entered his nostrils, competing with the sweet fragrance coming from Eve. Today she looked gorgeous. It might be because Ghost became closer to her as a friend, which was why Michael looked at her in a different light. At first, Michael thought she was no different than a typical cold beauty such as Alicia. The more he talked to Eve, the warmer her character became. Michael felt that she would become a good friend to him. She was open, helpful, and understanding. Eve reminded Michael of a girl he used to play with in the orphanage. Coincidentally, her name was also Eve. So Michael knew deep down he treated Eve as his friend because of his childhood friend. Host, Michael cultivation level, soul refining stage, level 2 experience points, 0/900, 000 badass points, 310, 000 skills and spells. Wind blast, LVL 6 responsive shield, LVL 8 environment scanning, LVL 6 ignitia, LVL 8 lightning dash, LVL 6 energy devour, LVL 2 soul eater, LVL 1 death range. LVL 3 Eyes of Darkness, Normal. Can sense the cultivation level of others' Eyes of Darkness, Lucifer. Can sense the cultivation level of others. Can see through illusions cloud of darkness, Lucifer. Weak. Willed enemies will lose their courage completely and surrender. Death range will be 50% more powerful, and if activated in darkness, the host's cultivation level will be boosted 4 levels up regardless of the stage barrier. Wordless spellcaster, Lucifer. In full Lucifer form, the host just has to think of the spell to cast it. Techniques: Swords of Destiny, 98% Mastery Ring of Fire, 92% Mastery Serpent Maga, 97% Mastery Occupation. Core Disciple of Sunrise Sect, the Guardian of Sunrise Sect, Lord Lucifer of the Abyssal, the Dark Lord, King of Bradford status. Healthy goals: Control the world. Rebuild the order of death. Utility function. Banker LVL 5. Ratio 1000 gold coins, 40 badass points, runic teleportation. X-ray vision, also integrated with eyes of darkness. Wealth 18 million gold. Special trait 5-star alchemist 4-star. Inventor subordinates. Gaia, warrior, loyalty level 100%. Raylene, 5-star chef, loyalty level 99%. Arya, assassin, loyalty level 86%. Heinberg, warrior, loyalty level 45%. Maxine, warrior, loyalty level 98%. Tiberius, warrior, loyalty level 55%. Sadie, loyalty level 50%. Ricky, loyalty level 98%. Titus, loyalty level 60%. Optimus, loyalty level 60%. The Silent Reaper crew, pirates, loyalty level 90%. Base of operation, Sunrise Sect. The Abyssal. The Crypt Kingdom of Bradford. Familiars. Nightmare, Forest. Dragon, Vidora, 3-headed Hydra. Elemental manipulation. Wind, 10% mastery. Fire, 10% mastery. Lightning, 15% mastery. Darkness, 20%. I should definitely upgrade my inventor trait. After getting blood samples and every other possible sample from Victor, Michael planned to build some nasty weapons against the vampires. As far as Michael learned about vampires, he needed special weapons. The rest of the world was unbelievably vulnerable to the vampires. Noah may have been somewhat astonished by the epic-class cauldrons Leylon and Jennifer had on the open ground. However, Andreas taught him the cauldron was merely an object, and an alchemist should not depend on the cauldron to refine a pill or potion. According to Andrews, an alchemist should be able to use the alchemy fire as a cauldron and refine pills and potions without a problem. Just like Ghost. Noah's white cauldron seemed somewhat shabby compared to Jennifer and Leylon. Unlike the rest, Noah was not too concerned about the cauldrons. Instead, he closed his eyes and thought for a moment. Then, he flicked his finger gently and a set of the ingredients needed to refine the Crimson Waves potion appeared on the stone table. The moment Michael saw the ingredients on Noah's table, Michael knew what he was going to brew. To be honest, the potion had all the wow factors to win the competition. Michael doubted anyone in the judging panel except Hendrix would know about the Crimson Waves potion. When an alchemist drank the potion, their alchemy fire would turn crimson red. Hence the name. The crimson red fire would burn hotter and easier to control than the default green flame so that the alchemist could produce pills and potions with a 10 to 15% higher purity rate up to 70%. If an alchemist could refine pills and potions with 70% purity, the potion wouldn't provide any effects. Michael didn't use the potion because he did not need to. He was a 5-star alchemist right out of the bat. So why didn't he sell them? Because it was bad for business to enhance alchemists. The fewer alchemists there were, the better. The hundreds of emerald green flames danced and flickered in the arena like fireflies made of jade glimmering in the night. The flames swayed with the wind chaotically with no direction in their mind until Michael conjured his heaven's flame. Even after seeing it several times, Noah's sparkling blue flames drew everyone's attention. Like a king among mortals, the blue flames overshadowed the green flames with its luster. Heaven's flame. How lucky that young man is to get a primordial flame. Sponsored content. Visit Readle. Me for extra chapters. Al read through a covetous look at Noah's flame. The old man's eyes were green with envy. Indeed, he is lucky. He would have become a target of many if the primordial fire could be stolen. Weirdly, Adovan eyed Gabriel a second before replying to Aishan. On the other hand, Jennifer had 25 ingredients on her table, whereas Leylon had a whooping 30. They began to put the ingredients one by one into the cauldron under the gazes of thousands of spectators. Meanwhile, some of the alchemists on the ground had already wholly refined all of the ingredients. Additionally, they started to prepare for the next step. The trio in the center ignored those participants and was totally focused on extracting the essence from each ingredient they put inside the cauldron. Unlike in the previous 2 rounds, small beads of sweat appeared on their forehead, trickling down their nose to the ground. Yet, they did not bother to wipe it off as they continued to focus on controlling the flame and extracting the essence. Then 10 minutes later, Noah carefully placed the last ingredient. Finally, the first essence bead, glowing in light pink, emerged from Noah's cauldron. Seeing that the extracting process was this smooth, Noah heaved a long sigh of relief. He turned his head and looked around. Surprised, he discovered that Jennifer and Leylon had formed 5 beads. Time slowly passed by as some of the competitors who initially had calm expressions began to pant a little. Such a huge burden and consumption of arch energy really exhausted them. Michael was getting bored out of his mind and even yawned behind his hand. Seeing Michael yawn, Eve couldn't hold back too. "I kinda wish I had seen your Elon battle tournament," Eve said, taking her gaze away from Jennifer. Suddenly Michael knit his brows as his neck hair stood up, alerting him of an upcoming threat. First, the air became thick with an intense scent of blood. Then, as though something was sucking all the light in the arena, the area turned gloomier. "What the?" Eve looked up to see a dark blanket falling over the arena. The arena was the size of a football stadium on Earth, and currently, the blanket falling from the sky covered the entire open sky above the arena. "What's happening? Oh God. The fuck?" Immediately, the spectators were thrown into chaos. Following the dark net, a strong gust of wind in the form of a wave brushed past the hundreds of alchemists, putting off their alchemy fire. Ghost. Terror clutched Eve's heart as she involuntarily squeezed Michael's hand. All the judges immediately stood up from their seats bewildered. Even Hendrix lost the calmness on his face. The sudden darkness along with the pungent blood stench in the air terrified them. "Lady Eve," Michael turned back to see a guard of Eve walking towards Eve holding his throat. In the dim, gloomy light, they saw blood gushing through his fingers. Another scream quickly echoed through the arena. The guard collapsed to the ground while another ear-piercing scream of a girl entered their ears. When they looked in the scream's direction, they all saw a mist of red smoke among the spectators. Soon after, they saw several other bloody veils of mist appear all over the spectators' stand. At this moment, the screams were the only sound they heard. "Guards!" Alred shouted, but no one responded. "Teacher." Ghostbook. Olivia stuttered, and when they looked at where she was pointing, they saw the guard who collapsed to the ground moving. The guard laid down his face against the floor and slowly moved his limbs. His lips made sickening, crunching sounds as he finally stood up on his feet. "Guard," Eve spoke in a muffled voice and frowned, looking at the blood oozing down from the wound on his neck. When Michael looked closer at the injury, he confirmed his suspicion and took a step back. When the guard leaped at Alred, Olivia screamed in shock. "Here!" The guard ripped off a huge chunk of meat from Alred's neck in a blink of an eye. The blood sprayed from Alred's neck to Aishan and Gabriel's faces. The warm blood brought Gabriel from his shock. "Holy blast!" Gabriel immediately reacted by sending a golden plasma beam at the guard. The beam shot right through the guard's chest, forming a huge smoking hole in his chest. However, it didn't stop the guard from taking another bite at Alred, who was clenching his neck in agony. "Holy blast!" Gabriel sent another plasma beam vaporizing the guard's head. Meanwhile, the spectators were in chaos as they attempted to flee the arena but turned into a bloody mess one by one. Aishan came out of his shock. Everything happened so quickly that only Gabriel was able to react in time. But, unfortunately, even he was late as the guard had already taken a huge chunk of Alred's throat with a single bite. Immediately a sparkling blue healing potion appeared in Aishan's hand. Lifting Alred's head, Aishan chugged the potion down his throat, but unfortunately, the wound on his throat didn't close up. "Welcome to the party." Out of the blue, a voice drenched in an evil aura reverberated in the arena. The cold, high, clear voice sent shivers through everyone's spines. A few seconds after the voice emerged, a dark figure clouded in a red mist appeared in the air right above Noah, Jennifer, and Leyland's center stage. Chapter 506 The Elder Vampire. A red mist completely clouded the figure. The fog was no different than Michael's cloud of darkness. Only the cloud enveloping the figure was dark crimson red. The stench of blood in the air doubled after the figure appeared. The strong scent nauseated Michael, and he was no stranger to the smell of blood. Involuntarily, Olivia stepped closer to Michael as the judges stared at the figure shivering in the air. They waited for the guards, but to no avail. "Where are the guards?" Olivia whispered. "Boys, slow down," the figure's voice echoed through the arena. Only then did they witness people in the arena getting bitten by someone enveloped in the red mist, just like the one in the air. The people who got bitten from behind exploded afterward. "Aha!" Looking at the scene, many screamed out loud and panicked. Instantly, the people made a run for the exit, only to turn into a pulpy mess. Michael noticed hundreds of vampires sucking the people's necks and turning them into a bloody mist. Deep down in his heart, he was glad Olivia was with him. Otherwise, she would have been targeted by the vampires. "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god," Olivia panicked, shivering from top to bottom. "Guards! Guards!" Aishan and Gabriel both screamed for the guards, but no one came through the door behind them. Michael never expected the vampires to launch a large-scale attack. Instead, he thought they would go into hiding because that is what he would have done if someone had exposed his secret identity. "This is troublesome," Michael said to himself. According to the experiments and information he gathered from Victor, vampires were immune to spell attacks no matter how powerful the spell was. The guard who was killed by Gabriel wasn't a fully turned vampire. He was controlled like a puppet by someone, probably the vampire shrouded in a red mist. The bloody mists appeared after the people exploded, drifted to the vampire hovering in the air, and enhanced the crimson-red cloud around the vampire. Killing a vampire without going into full Dark Lord was highly troublesome. He had to use the dark flames to kill or even slow down a vampire. Otherwise, they would just regenerate and attack back with several times more ferociousness. Fortunately, the vampires blocked the sunlight by putting on a giant blanket over the arena. But, unfortunately, by doing this, they turned the arena dark, and darkness was his domain. Shit! What's happening? Where are the guards? Leylon and Jennifer panicked just as the rest of the alchemists. Considering the vampires hadn't started to kill the alchemists on the ground yet, they still possessed the ability to think. The spectators, however, ran for the exit like headless chickens. Many got stepped over and died by getting crushed. Jade Crucifix. All of a sudden, Hendrix, who remained furrowing his gray eyebrows, raised his hand. The very next moment, an emerald green crucifix materialized in the air just a few meters away from Michael. The crucifix went from a typical handheld size to a giant 8-foot crucifix. It floated towards the vampire in the air. As the crucifix floated towards the vampire, it sucked the bloody mist like a black hole. Soon afterward, Michael noticed several vampires getting sucked from the spectators' stand. They screamed and squirmed. However, Michael noticed that only several people in guards' uniforms were getting sucked by the crucifix. Those who bit people wearing completely black robes remained still without getting affected by the crucifix. The crucifix differentiated the halfly turned puppets from the fully matured vampires. What bothered Michael was how mature these vampires were. If they were anything like Victor, the odds of surviving would go way down. He could count at least 50 vampires. Weirdly, he sensed no cultivation power from them. There was only a possible explanation that appeared in Michael's mind. When the vampires crossed the void line, they possessed a cultivation level like the normal cultivators. But, in the cultivation of continents, they became something else. Are they stronger or weaker? That was the question that quickly emerged in his mind. Humph! Michael heard the vampire in the air snicker. Afterward, a trail of smoke extended from the crimson-red shroud towards the crucifix. Then, the emerald-green crucifix and blood-red smoke clashed in midair, producing an otherworldly whistling sound. The crimson-red smoke rapidly engulfed the crucifix, rendering the emerald-green dim. In a couple of blinks of an eye, the red smoke completely swallowed the crucifix. Boom! Then, the sound of the explosion reverberated in the air as Michael witnessed thousands of tiny green particles raining down. Ah! Hendrix coughed up a mouthful of blood as he stumbled back, losing his balance. Run! Hendrix mumbled. Hendrix was at the fusion stage, yet his spell was decimated within a few moments. Even if Hendrix was a warrior, his spell still wouldn't have affected the vampire. Is he an elder vampire? Michael asked himself, recalling Victor's words about the elder vampires, who were the most powerful pure-blooded vampires. But, of course, Victor had no idea there were more powerful classes of vampires above the elder vampires. Gabriel didn't even dare to cast a spell because he was at the core strengthening stage and he knew how powerful Hendrix was. So Gabriel knew if Hendrix stood no chance, neither would he. Hence, Gabriel turned back and rushed towards the door to escape. "What's the rush, Lord Gabriel?" The vampire's high-pitched clear voice rang in their heads as a cloud of smoke shot out from the vampire and covered the door. Holy blast! Gabriel raised his hand, sending the golden plasma blast at the cloud. To his shock, the plasma blast shattered into millions of golden dots when it clashed with the cloud. "Lord Hendrix!" Hearing Aishan's shout, Michael turned his head from Gabriel to Aishan and saw Hendrix floating towards the vampire. His old body was stiff as though he was paralyzed. He didn't even move a muscle. Does he have something to do with the ambush? Michael asked himself, looking at Gabriel, who was currently trying to get through the red smoke blocking the door. Despite the chaos and mayhem, Michael remained calm. On top of his training to stay calm despite the situation, the darkness soothed his mind and soul. He cancelled out all the screams of the people and focused on how to escape the arena without revealing his full power. Furthermore, he hoped the vampire's aim was to massacre people and issue the world a warning. Rather than targeting anyone specifically, anyone such as the Dark Lord who orchestrated their destruction of secrecy. Jennifer, Eve tried to move forward, but Michael quickly grabbed her hand. Sponsored content, visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. Stay still. Don't give him a reason to attack you. Noah will protect her, Michael whispered coldly to Eve. The seriousness and authority in his voice rendered Eve speechless. She wanted to disagree, but she simply couldn't. Michael didn't know about Leylon, but he was certain Noah would protect Jennifer. Meanwhile, Alicia and Norvin leaped onto the ground, reaching Noah. Ghosty drag dash. With his eyes turning red, Aishan raised his hand to cast a spell. Before he could finish casting, a puff of smoke shot out from the vampire like an arrow and blasted Aishan to the wall. In mid-air, the shroud enveloping the vampire slowly opened up, vaguely revealing a bloated short man. Through the opening, Michael saw the man opening his mouth as a meter-long tongue resembling a tentacle came out to lick Hendrix. Still, Hendrix didn't even move a muscle. Instead, he looked like a T-pose statue while being licked by the vampire. The tongue gradually coiled around Hendrix's neck, clenching Hendrix's throat little by little. "Leave him alone." Suddenly, Noah's shot echoed through the arena. Then, everyone saw a bright beam of light shoot out of Noah's body to straight up at the vampire. The bright beam had a tint of blue as heaven's flame coiled around the beam. As per Michael's knowledge, the primordial flames were one of the weaknesses of a vampire. Ever since he used dark flames on Victor, Michael wondered whether the other primordial flames would have the same effect or not. His curiosity ended when Noah's flame cut straight through the bloody mist enveloping the vampire, cutting the tongue around Hendrix's neck. Immediately Alicia leaped into the air, catching Hendrix in her arms. "Arg!" the vampire cried, but it sounded more pissed off rather than hurt. When the vampire growled, all his underlings stopped killing the spectators and leaped onto the ground. "Boys, kill them," the vampire coldly ordered the underlings. Michael had a feeling the vampire was looking at the VIP seatings. His feeling was confirmed when a few vampires leaped from the ground to their VIP seatings. "Thank you, Noah," Michael cursed Noah in his mind. There was a possibility that the vampire was targeting only Hendrix and would have left the arena after killing Hendrix. By attacking the vampire with Heaven's Flame, Noah pissed it off. Now, the vampire ordered the underlings to kill them instead of killing the spectators. Granted, Michael felt terrible for the people who got killed by the vampires. Yet, his own survival was more important to him than the people. When two powerful forces were at war, people would die. As far as Michael was concerned, it was impossible to save everyone. "Get them to safety!" From the ground, Noah shouted at Alicia. And just as she was about to leap at the VIP seatings, Noah raised his hand, sending a stream of heaven's flame to Alicia's golden spear. Immediately, her spear lit with heaven's flame. Michael, who saw the spear burning with heaven's flame, cursed at the dark flames because if he had to cover his swords in dark flames, the flames would melt down the steel like a knob of butter. Seems like mine is more powerful than heaven's flame. He calmed himself down, comparing heaven's flame and the dark flames. Stay back. Michael stepped in front of Eve and Olivia as 2 vampires targeted him. While 4 others targeted Asian and Gabriel, like hell I would, Eve stepped forward and stood beside Michael as a hammer with a gold handle materialized in her hand. In the corner of his eyes, Michael saw several tiny runes glowing on the gray hammerhead. Eve kept spinning her hammer until the hammer became blurry. Whoa! Michael was stunned when she threw the hammer at the vampire and sent the vampire flying before hitting the vampire in the chest. She raised her hand as the hammer, which disappeared from their sight, came right back into her hand. Michael noticed the runes glowing brighter than before. Unfortunately, he missed the ability to summon back Doombringer after throwing it. At the moment, he had to upgrade the Doombringer if he wanted to place any runes. Seeing Eve summon the hammer back, he was slightly jealous, to be honest. Moreover, she looked so cool. However, Michael didn't plan to be on the sidelines. This was his scene, and Michael had enough of being sidelined. Chapter 507 Onto the fire from the frying pan. The vampire who witnessed his friend get sent flying by Eve bore his teeth, showing razor-sharp teeth. The vampires wore dark robes from head to toe, and under the dark cloak, Michael could see their pale faces and crimson-red slit pupils. Pulch! As the vampire stared at Eve, a spear impaled him from behind. Alicia lifted the vampire with her spear in the air and let heaven's flame completely engulf the vampire. The vampire burnt to a crisp in a matter of seconds as the wind took the gray ash with it. The 2 girls stole Michael's thunder. But Michael was calm. Surviving the vampires was more important than showing off. End of the day, being alive was the most badass thing one could do. Eve. Before Alicia could lock her eyes with Michael, Jennifer landed on the VIP stage beside her sister. Jenny. Eve embraced her little sister in a tight hug. Jennifer's face was pale because of what she had witnessed. The young girl was terrified. Michael could see her body trembling uncontrollably. Unlike her sister Eve, she was not a warrior trained in combat. She was an alchemist. Her fear for blood and gore was the exact reason the Voldegards spent their resources to make her an alchemist instead of a warrior. Teacher. After Jennifer, Leylon landed on the stage. Seeing the 4 remaining vampires turning their focus to Alicia and Eve from Gabriel and Asian, Alicia took a step forward, grabbed her spear in 2 hands tightly, and locked her gaze with the 4 vampires approaching her. Michael remained still and stepped towards the door. In the corner of his eye, he noticed the golden Babaru running around, attacking the vampires and clearing the way for the people to escape. The monkey was fast but not fast enough to save all the people. There were many people getting slaughtered by the vampires among the spectators. Come on, while Alicia was fighting 4 vampires at the same time, Michael reached the door with Olivia and Eve following him behind. Alicia noticed Ghost ignoring her, and her eyes immediately got filled with fury. Arg! Alicia roared as she slammed the spear onto the stage, creating a powerful shockwave that knocked down the vampires as well as everyone except Michael and Eve. Bitch! One of the vampires snarled. Then he dashed at Alicia faster than ever before. Michael noticed the vampires finally taking the fight seriously. Their inhuman speed stunned Alicia. Michael, who fought Victor, knew their speed. In a blink of an eye, the vampire appeared behind Alicia. On the other side, the 3 vampires flanked Alicia from all directions. That bitch is dead, Michael amused inside. One less ally for Noah was one less enemy for him. While this was happening on the VIP stage, Noah was fighting the vampires on the ground. Fortunately, the vampire in the air observed the fight, not intending to join the battle himself. The more people the vampires killed, the bigger the shroud of red mist around him. Holy blast, holy blast, holy blast, Leylon kept shooting plasma blasts in all directions hoping to hit the vampires. Arg! After several tries, he hit something, but it wasn't a vampire. He hit Alicia, who was fighting 4 vampires. With a stomp to the ground, Eve knocked down several chairs and pushed down Jennifer's head. Stay here. Then Eve leaped into the air, raising her hammer in the air. Boom! A vampire was about to bite Alicia in the neck when Eve brought the wrath of her hammer down on him. Immediately the 4 vampires dashed away, sensing the impending danger. However, when Eve's hammer hit the stage, a shock wave that was several times more powerful than the one Alicia created blasted everyone and everything. Even Michael stumbled and had to grab the wall to steady himself. In addition, the hammer made several cracks on the stage. Looking at the cracks widening, Michael didn't think the stage could withstand another attack. While Eve was spinning her hammer and creating a wind force that slowed down vampires, Michael went to the door, which was covered by the red mist. Get out of my way, Michael shoved Gabriel away from the door. Bastard! Gabriel almost lost his balance and was enraged by Michael's action. Paying no mind to Gabriel, Michael placed his hand on the smoke. Michael felt a suction force as he put his hand through the mist. Michael conjured the dark flames inside the smoke. The red smoke faded away as soon as the dark flames appeared in his hand, revealing the door. Bang! Michael kicked open the door to see several dark-robed vampires feasting on Eve's guards. At that moment, they all glared at Michael, blood oozing down their mouths. For a moment, Michael remained still at the doorway, pondering whether he should exit through the hall with 20 vampires or through the open ground where a powerful vampire. We can't fight them for long, Eve said to Alicia while swinging her hammer around her to keep the vampires from taking a bite off her. Since Michael opened the door, Asian prepared to drag Alred's lifeless body with him to the door. Shit! Leylon cursed when he saw the 20 vampires standing in line across the hall from one end to another. The marble floor and walls were tainted with splashes of red. The sickening sight of bodies with eyes still opened lying around nauseated Leylon. His face immediately turned green. You doomed us. Gabriel didn't fail to take a shot at Michael as he took a step back from the door. You want to go that way? Be my guest, Michael coldly said before stepping into the hall. Compared to the countless underling vampires and an elder vampire, battling the 20 vampires in the hall seemed a better choice. Unlike Noah, Michael didn't wish to reveal he had primordial flames. Several meters away from Michael, Eve slammed her hammer on the last vampire's chest. Grr! Sponsored content. Visit Rietal. Me for extra chapters. The vampire growled in pain, but before it could dash at Eve, Alicia stabbed the vampire from behind with the heaven flames-covered spear. Killing the last vampire on the stage gave them all leeway to enter the hall. For some reason, the elder vampire did not mind them entering the hall. Michael had a bad feeling about the elder vampire's calmness. Yet, he was not planning to decode its plan. Instead, his highest priority was to get the hell out of the arena without revealing his identity as the Dark Lord. Looking at Michael entering the hall, Olivia followed him behind. Then Eve, Jennifer, and Asian, dragging Alred's lifeless body, entered the hall. Lastly, after pondering their options, Gabriel and Leylon followed them inside the hall. Eve, Jennifer shivered, looking at the vampires in front of her. Except for their mouth, one could see nothing due to the dark robes and cloak. The vampires snarled, revealing their blood-covered teeth and 2 razor-sharp fangs. Fresh blood, one of the vampires said in a croaky voice. Well, get through this. Eve hid the dread in her heart and pretended to be fearless. Fighting 4 vampires took so much effort from both of them. So Eve knew how difficult, if not impossible, to fight 20 vampires. Where are you going? Eve was startled to see Ghost turning his back and walking back to the door. Instead of answering Eve, Michael closed the door. What the hell? Leylon tried to shout this time, but only a muffled cry escaped his mouth. Again, he did not want to agitate the vampires in front of him. Alicia coldly stared at him. She directed her killing toward Michael more than she directed toward the vampires. Again, rather than responding to pointless questions, Michael grabbed a chair and stuck it against the doorknob to prevent anyone from opening the door from outside. Regardless of the situation, he remained calm, which surprised Eve. There was no fear in his eyes. "Ghost, I don't think we can take on all of them," Xian said in a husky voice. "You have a better idea? It's them or the one who knocked out Lord Hendrix in a second." Recalling what happened to Hendrix, Xian's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, he could only pray Noah would somehow save Hendrix and himself. "Why aren't they attacking?" Eve mumbled. Her words were barely audible to those who were near her. Yet the vampires who stood 20 meters away from her clearly heard her. "Meat dipped in fear is tastier," a vampire snickered. After hearing his murderous voice, Jennifer felt a chill running down her spine. She felt like the vampire was looking at her while speaking those words. "Follow my lead." Alicia took a step forward, and then she looked over her shoulder at Michael. "Don't get killed." Eve could sense the apparent tension between them. Last night when she spent the night with Olivia, she heard about what happened during the tournament. But, like most people, Eve also blamed Peter for his fate. Alicia was lucky that Michael was a very patient man. Otherwise, he would have beaten the crap out of her just to wipe that stern look off her face. However, before she could take another step, Eve saw a streak of golden light across the hall running through between two vampires. It took her a moment to realize that Ghost had disappeared from her side. While she was in shock, wondering where did he go, the heads of the two vampires near the golden trail dropped to the ground, producing a sickening thud sound. The vampires standing in a neat line were startled to see their friends dancing on the floor without their heads. The blood spraying from the two headless bodies interrupted the group's vision. Still, through the blood fountain, Eve vaguely saw a figure on the other side of the vampire line. "Ghost," she mumbled, completely stunned by him. One moment he was there, and the next he wasn't. Not only Eve, every single one was taken aback by surprise. The vampires could generate any parts of their bodies in a few minutes, but not their heads. Hence, when Michael cleaved the heads off their shoulders, they could only do one thing: die. The vampires were immune to spells, arrays, and anything that was powered by arch or celestial energy, but not to physical attacks void of any energy. Besides, the vampires remained still without moving an inch. Hence, Michael was able to cut their heads off with no problem. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 3,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 3,000 badass points. All the vampires turned around to see Michael staring at them with his two black swords in his hands. Chapter 508: Accident or Assassination. Just like that, Michael killed two vampires. Then, while the vampires were stunned, Michael took a glimmering silvery vial from the system storage. Clang! Michael threw the vial at the ground near the vampire. The vial shattered until countless tiny pieces of glass as a puff of white smoke engulfed the air between Michael and the vampires. It burns. My eyes. Suddenly, the vampires began running around the hall, clenching their eyes and screaming. After taking Victor's blood samples, Michael brewed the tear gas to disorient the vampires. Michael did not dare to waste any time as he cast the lightning dash. "This is our chance. Push forward." Eve raised her hammer, roaring a battle cry before running toward the vampires, swinging her hammer. Cut their heads off. Eve felt a chill when she heard Ghost's voice sounding in her ears. It took her a second to realize that he had run past her, and she just couldn't see him but only the golden trail beside her. While Eve, Alicia, and Ghost were fighting the disoriented vampires, Gabriel and Leylon made a break for it. They cautiously went to the hall's corner and walked to the other side, remaining so close to the wall like a pair of geckos. Blood tornado, blood hole. Among the 18 vampires, 2 of them stopped running and raised their hands high in the air, casting a spell before Michael could stop them. As soon as they cast the spells, the room was lit with red as though the chandeliers radiating red light instead of white. Additionally, the bodies of Eve's guards squirmed. Soon, all the blood inside their bodies was sucked out from their bodies to form a mini tornado in the middle of the hall. Michael felt his speed decrease due to the tornado countering his spell. His running speed was further reduced when a red hole appeared in the ceiling, sucking everything into it. The red hole sucked everything in the room, such as chairs, remaining bodies, and portraits of various alchemists. Aishin held Alred's body in one hand and a lion statue which was too heavy for the red hole to suck. Jenny! Eve kept spinning her hammer, fighting the creating a counter-force to the red hole, and shouted at Jennifer. Fortunately, Jennifer and Olivia found a statue similar to the one beside Aishin and held onto it with their life. Since Gabriel and Leylon were sticking close to the walls, they were able to grab onto the window grill. On the other hand, Alicia stabbed the spear through the floor and held onto the spear. Then, while spinning the hammer, Eve noticed Ghost sliding towards the tornado swirling beneath the red hole. Ghost! She tried to reach for him even though he was at least 10 meters away from her. Yet, even at this very moment, Eve saw no fear or concern on his face. On the contrary, surprisingly, when she shouted at him, she saw a smile emerge on his calm face. She felt creeped out by his smile. How could a man smile in a situation like this? Her mind couldn't find an answer to her question. Then, as she was staring at him, she noticed he suddenly stabbed the floor with the sword in his hand. The next moment he threw the sword against all the force at the vampire who cast the tornado spell. The sword he threw soared through the air like an arrow until it pierced the vampire's forehead. Immediately the tornado disappeared from existence along with the sickering red ambience. Although the tornado went away and gave them breathing room, the remaining vampires were able to dash at them freely. Unlike Michael and the others, the red hole didn't have any effect on the vampires. Several vampires targeted Alicia since she had Heaven's Flame. They wanted to kill her while she was fighting the suction force. Only a couple of vampires targeted Eve because the vampires deemed her as the less threatening one among them. Her blunt weapon was basically useless against them when she fought them alone without Alicia. All the remaining vampires moved towards Michael. As far as they were concerned, he was just as dangerous as Heaven's Flame-wielding Alicia. Seeing 5 vampires moving towards him, Michael raised his finger. Ignitia, the golden lightning bolt shot out of his hand, piercing through the vampire's chest. Out of the blue, a scream reverberated in the hall. However, it didn't come from the vampire with the hole in his chest but from Gabriel. Unfortunately, Gabriel was in the lightning bolt's trajectory and got hit by the bolt in the hand. Hence, he let go of the window grills, resulting in him being sucked into the red hole. Teacher! Leylon shouted at Gabriel, but it was too late as Gabriel was flinging towards the red hole. He flew towards the red hole like a kite without an anchor until Alicia grabbed Gabriel by his hands. Don't let it go! Gabriel shouted. On the other hand, Alicia's spear began to tremble as it couldn't support 2 people. Ignitia, Michael kept firing lightning bolts at the vampires to keep them from reaching him. This time, none of the lightning bolts hit others. Your hands, slipping. Gabriel shouted, feeling his grab loosening. Blessing hands. Suddenly, a giant golden ghostly hand flicked Gabriel with enough force to send him flying onto the other side. I got you. In the midway, Michael grabbed Gabriel by his hand before Gabriel could fly over his head. Teacher! Jennifer cried out loud when she saw Alred's lifeless body disappearing into the red hole. Only then did they realize that the spell was cast by Aishin. He sacrificed Alred's body by letting him go so he could cast a spell to save Gabriel. Aishin held no love for Gabriel, but he was unable to let Gabriel die when he could save Gabriel from death. Tears gushed out of Jennifer's eyes as the memories she had spent with Alred flashed across her eyes. Hold me tight. Gabriel shouted at Michael. The swag Gabriel had was nowhere to be found on his face. At the moment, Gabriel shivered and sweated, fearing for his life. I want Lord Gabriel, Michael raised his voice. Gabriel's heart was pounding against his chest. He looked around while holding onto Ghost's hand to see 4 vampires walking toward them. To inflict maximum fear, the vampires showed their teeth, slowly walking toward them. On the one hand, Michael held onto the sword, and on the other, he had onto Gabriel. Hold tight, Lord Gabriel. Your hands are slipping. Michael shouted as the vampires devilishly grinned. No, 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 no. Gabriel frantically shook his head. But, unlike Ghost claimed, he didn't feel his hands slipping. For a moment, Gabriel saw Ghost's lips curling upwards, revealing an evil grin. It's slipping, Lord Gabriel. I can't hold much longer. The grin instantly disappeared from his face, and Gabriel shouted as Michael let go of his hands. In a blink of an eye, the red hole sucked in Gabriel, killing the previous #1 alchemist of Elon and Azer continent. Sponsored content. Visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. Finally, Alicia had enough. The next moment, she pulled the spear from the ground. As soon as she did that, the red hole sucked her in, but in the mid-air, she threw the spear at the vampire who cast the spell. The spear cut through the air with enough force to nail the vampire into the wall behind him. Luckily, before she could disappear into the red hole, heaven's flames surrounding the spear rendered the vampire into a pile of ashes. Teacher, no! Leylon screamed. All the veins in his face bulged as his eyes turned blood red. Holy blast, holy blast, holy blast, holy blast, holy blast. He was enraged by the loss of his teacher. Thus, he went berserk by shooting plasma blasts at the vampires one after another. He didn't care if he was hitting them or not, but he just kept casting the spell. In his anger, Leylon lost the fear of vampires. The man who picked up from the streets and raised him as his own just got killed in front of his eyes. Hence, Leylon was enraged beyond words. Since the tornado and the red hole disappeared, Michael cast lightning dash to disappear again. Poch, poch, poch. The vampires only felt a gust of wind before they saw their friends losing their heads. Michael used celestial energy to increase his speed. Therefore, the vampires had no chance of seeing him or reacting to his speed. Eve saw several heads rolling on the ground as the headless bodies sprayed blood all over the marble floor before collapsing to the ground. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 3,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 3,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 3,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 3,000 badass points. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Soul Refining Stage Level 4. The notification sound of the system kept ringing in his head continuously. Finally, after cleaving 9 heads, Michael reached the next level of the Soul Refining stage. The remaining 5 vampires looked paler than usual in fear. No longer they treated Michael like he was not a significant threat. They never expected Michael to kill 9 vampires in a few seconds. If the vampires crossed the void line, they would be at the core formation stage. Besides, they were also freshly turned by the elder vampire, so they had no battle experience like the others. Because of these reasons, Michael killed them so effortlessly. Even Michael was surprised at how easy it was for him to kill them. At this point, Michael was confident the elder vampire was treating the alchemy competition as a training ground for the newly turned vampires. The question was whether the elder vampire really here to take revenge for exposing their existence or for something else. Arg! Meanwhile, Eve crushed a vampire's head with her hammer, and Alicia killed 2 more vampires with lightning-quick speed. The remaining vampires stood no chance as Michael made quick work on them. The headless vampires staggered as blood sprayed out into the air from their necks. While the blood was raining down, Alicia saw Ghost walking calmly towards Eve. The latter was breathing heavily after a long battle. However, the battle was far from over. Boom! Suddenly the wall near the door they walked through exploded into bits and pieces, creating a cloud of smoke. A figure came flying through the smoke and landed near Alicia. No. Chapter 509. Taking a risk to get stronger. Michael saw Noah coughing mouthfuls of blood while struggling to get to his feet. His pure white robes were smudged with mud and blood. Noah! Alicia screamed as she went to her knees. She immediately flicked her wrist to take out a blue healing potion. Following Alicia, Aishin came running to Noah and tried to help him up. But unfortunately, Noah really seemed to be in bad shape. There were numerous claw marks, cuts, and bruises on his body. Since Noah was just in the core strengthening stage, the cultivation gap between the vampires and Noah was not as big as that between Michael and the vampires. But, because Noah battled more than 20 vampires with no help, the vampires did a number on him. After Alicia chugged the healing potion down Noah's throat, the bruises on Noah's face slowly disappeared as the rosiness returned to his face. "We have to go." Noah slurred due to internal injuries. They could barely distinguish the words that escaped his mouth. Boom. Suddenly the door Michael blocked exploded into bits and pieces. Through the environmental map, Michael sensed the vampires rushing into the hall. "Olivia, Eve," Michael raised his voice, drawing their attention to him. "Run now." But Olivia tried to interject, but Michael's face twitched, wordlessly telling her to shut up. If push came to shove, Michael could always teleport away. However, teleporting Eve and Olivia would raise unwanted attention of Noah and Alicia. Besides, although fighting the vampires was risky, killing them offered him precious experience points. By utilizing the situation, Michael planned to have another breakthrough. Getting stronger was the only way he could fight his future enemies. But, to become strong, he knew he had to take risks. "Jenny, quick." Jennifer did not waste time arguing with Michael. Ghost might be a good friend to her, but her little sister's safety was the most important thing to her. Hence, Eve grabbed Jennifer and Olivia's hand to rush toward the door on the other side before the vampires could pour in through the blasted door. "You three should go too." Noah finally picked himself to his feet. Leylon gave a stare to Michael before running behind Eve, leaving Aishin and Alicia behind. "Where is Norvin?" "I sent him away to call for backup," Alicia said as Michael walked towards the door. Even went through. Noah noticed a wooden bucket appear in Ghost's hands. "There is no time. I will hold them off as long as I can." Noah's words reached Michael's ears and surprised him. Michael wondered what the hell was going on in Noah's head. He was planning to stay back to fight the vampires because he needed experience points and had an escape plan. However, Noah needed no experience points or seemed to have no escape plan. "No. Come with us." Alicia's eyes watered up as she frantically shook her head. "Do not make me pull ranks on you, Alicia. Grandmaster, please take her with you." Meanwhile, Michael splashed the liquid in the bucket onto the door. Immediately, the air became thick with the smell of oil. The smell indicated what Ghost was planning to do. Noah pushed both Grandmaster Aishin and Alicia towards the door. "Why are you staying behind?" Noah asked Ghost. To Noah, Ghost staying behind was a surprise. Alicia forgot to throw a death glare at Michael in her concern about leaving behind Noah. "Where are you, Piggy?" The bone-chilling voice of the elder vampire sounded in their ears. "I can't let you have all the fun," Michael responded to Noah with a smile. Then the moment Alicia and Aishin stepped outside, Michael closed the door. With a snap of his finger, Michael sent a tiny bolt of lightning to the door, causing the door to get on fire immediately. As the door was burning behind them, Michael and Noah walked side by side for the first time as their long coats fluttered in the wind. On the other side, the elder vampire shrouded in red mist hovered through the hole where the door was, followed by several dark-robed vampires. "We cannot fight him in a closed space like this," Michael whispered to Noah. Looking at the elder vampire and the others behind him, Michael's instincts told him they were not as weak as the vampires he killed. The last thing Michael wanted was another red hole in a closed space. So instead, the ideal place to battle them would be in the open. "Just the two I want," the elder vampire snarled. Unfortunately, because of the shroud of mist around him, Noah couldn't see the elder vampire behind. However, Michael was able to because of his X-ray vision. Thus, Michael saw the elder vampire raise his hand. And the moment Michael saw the vampire snap his fingers, the entire hall trembled. Boom! The hall exploded from within. Soon the building crumbled down. Lightning dash! Michael immediately cast the spell to escape the hall. From outside, one could see the entire northern side of the arena collapse to the ground. The crumbling building hit the ground, producing a dust storm. Because of the dark blanket on the arena, the scene looked eerie. Many alchemists lay on the open ground without moving a muscle. Their green robes were drenched in their own blood. Other than the green robes, the only commonality they had between them was the bite mark on their necks. Those who were lucky escaped the arena while Noah was fighting them. Still, almost 60% of the people died at the hands of the vampires. The smell of blood stench in the air was evident from this gruesome massacre. The casualty rate of the alchemists was much higher than the spectators. Only a handful of the alchemists who participated in the final round escaped the arena. The rest were on the ground, dead. Almost 90% of the most talented alchemists of Elon and Azer died in the battle. At that moment, among the bodies, 2 bodies moved. Shit, Michael cursed as he picked himself up from the ground. He pushed himself to the limit by using celestial energy. Otherwise, he would have been crushed by the building. He still couldn't believe the elder vampire brought down the hall with a single snap of his finger. Michael picked himself up as he growled and saw the arena in ruins. The VIP seating and the hall north side of the arena were gone. Arg, Michael heard a growl as he turned aside to see Noah. Just like him, Noah also pushed himself to escape the collapsing building. However, considering Noah wasn't a soul refining stage cultivator, he couldn't use celestial energy to power up his spells. That was why Noah had bruises and cuts, unlike Michael. Noah flicked his wrist, retrieving a healing potion. Noah drank the potion in one gulp and prepared himself for the battle. Then, Noah looked around to see hundreds of dead bodies. All those lives, lost. His heart ached at the sight. These are blood-sucking vampires. So we have to kill them, you know that, right? Michael asked, looking at the elder vampire hovering towards them with the vampires following him behind. I only want one alive, Noah said. Sponsored content. Visit Readle. Me for extra chapters. No problem for me. Obviously, Noah wanted one vampire alive so he could interrogate him for more information. If Michael was right, Noah would also try to find a cure for vampirism. With the help of the system, it was not a big deal for Michael. He had already started to find the cure and required a blood sample from a more powerful vampire other than Victor. His blood might do the trick, Michael said to himself, staring at the elder vampire. At the moment, only Michael, Noah, and the vampires remained in the arena. All the others were either dead or escaped the arena with their life intact. You possess heaven's flame, the elder vampire said, landing on the ground. You massacred my freshlings. The elder vampire turned his gaze from Noah to Michael. I wonder what kind of vampires you two would become. The elder vampire's voice sounded colder. When I turn you both. As soon as these words escaped the elder vampire's mouth, the 30 vampires behind him dashed at Michael and Noah before they could even blink an eye. Lightning dash, void step, Michael dashed at the vampires, leaving a golden trail, while Noah left blurry after images. Clang, clang. The sound of metals clashing emerged in the ground, but unlike one would expect, the sound produced by Michael and Noah's sword hitting the vampires' necks. Michael was surprised as his sword didn't cut through the vampire like before. Instead, he felt like he had hit a stone. Only then did he realize the red mist covering the vampire's neck. Die! The vampire violently swung his fist at Michael, but he quickly leaped back. On the other hand, Noah was also surprised by the protective mist around their necks. Blood beam! Before Michael could bat an eye, the vampire fired a red beam at him. Out of the blue, the translucent responsive shield popped up and absorbed the beam, protecting Michael. The vampire was surprised but kept firing beam after another without a break. Suddenly Michael's neck hair stood up as another vampire leaped at him simultaneously from behind, left and right. Noah's situation was no different than Michael's. In fact, Noah was in worse condition as more vampires targeted him because of Heaven's Flame. The responsive shield could protect him from attack spells but not physical attacks. Therefore, Michael immediately cast the Ring of Fire to burn the vampires flanking him. Motherfucker! The scorching hot flame appeared around Michael in a perfect circle, instantly burning the 4 vampires within a 3-meter radius. The flames continued to send waves of flames in all directions, preventing the other vampires from getting close to Michael and burning the vampires inside the circle more and more. Granted, the vampires had inhuman regeneration. Still, injuries and burn wounds hurt them like hell. Luckily for the vampires, Michael still didn't use the dark flames. Otherwise, the ring of fire would have turned the vampires into piles of ashes. Arg! Suddenly a vampire roared as he smashed the stage Noah stood on during the competition. Bang! 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 A couple of vampires joined the vampire in breaking the platform. Meanwhile, the others kept Michael and Noah busy. They swarmed the two of them from all directions. They kept smashing the platform until the platform cracked open. Then, after cracking open the marble platform, the vampires ripped apart a huge 10-meter-long marble slab. Boom! Shit! Michael only saw a blue before he was sent flying by the marble pillar. In midair, he coughed up blood as the APD immediately sent a healing potion into his bloodstream to heal his body. The vampires swung the marble pillar again as fast as they could and swatted Noah like a bug. The next moment, Noah's body violently screeched through the ground, creating a clear trail. Chapter 5 10 Gods in Action. The vampires split the marble pole into 2. Some vampires grabbed one hand and ran to Noah while the others leaped into the air above Michael. Fuck! Michael saw the vampires bringing down the marble pillar to crush him like a bug. Lightning dash! Immediately Michael dashed out of the way. Boom! When the vampires brought down the pillar, the shock wave created a mini explosion and a dust storm around the area where Michael was a moment ago. Meanwhile, on the other side, the vampires treated the heavy marble pole like a wooden club and tried to smash Noah. Light blast! Noah raised his hand, seeing the pillar coming down on him. Boom! The blast of light beam shot out of Noah's hands, obliterated the pillar into bits and pieces. Still, the beam of light wasn't powerful enough to stop the vampires from smashing him with the marble chunks. Cough! Noah coughed up blood when a huge chunk of marble landed on his chest. Michael was surprised to see Noah getting beaten up by the vampires. However, when he pondered for a moment, everything made sense to him. The vampires drew power from darkness, just like him. Only, he didn't cast Death Range to strengthen his powers since he didn't want anyone to suspect him of being the Dark Lord. Noah, on the other hand, drew power from light. Although Michael had no concrete evidence that Noah was the god of light, he suspected it. The acne before him confirmed his doubt. If Noah was to draw power from light, it made sense why he was so weak at the moment. Because there was no light coming through the dark blanket in the arena, the entire atmosphere had an eerie red and black color to it, resembling hell. Since there was a lack of light, the darkness suppressed Noah's powers. In addition, he also used most of his energy fighting the vampires and saving the spectators. While the marble block pinned Noah down on his chest, 3 vampires leaped at him, showing their fangs. Their eyes were blood red, longing to drink Noah's blood. Michael may not know Noah was his brother, but when he saw Noah was in danger, the bond of brothers buried deep within him woke up as Michael dashed at Noah. But, of course, Michael rationalized the feeling of saving Noah by thinking that he needs Noah's heaven's flame to kill the vampires without revealing his secrets. Before Noah could cast another spell, the marble chunk on his chest shattered into pieces, and a strong wave of wind blasted away the vampires leaping at him. Noah looked up and saw Ghost extending his hand. For some reason, Noah felt safe around him. Thus, Noah grabbed his hand and stood up. As soon as he grabbed his hand, Noah felt a sting in his palm. Then, a refreshing feeling surged from his core. Noah immediately felt better, and when he saw Ghost, he winked at him. "Time out!" Michael shouted at the vampires as they halted their steps. "Just give us a damn moment, okay? You guys are bullying us." The vampires were confused, and so was the elder vampire. Now, regretting not running away, Michael's facial muscles twitched, showing his exhaustion to the vampires. What is he doing? Noah wondered. Since he had to heal his body and replenish the arch energy within his body, Noah remained still. Don't bother stalling, Ghost, the elder vampire snickered. No one is getting in or out without my permission. Michael took a step aside, but the vampires immediately snarled at him. So Michael quickly dropped his swords. I'm not gonna fight anymore. Just as though the vampires received an order from the elder vampire, they stepped back. Is it too late to ask for permission to leave? I mean, you clearly allowed others to leave. Michael slowly walked away from Noah, keeping his hands in the air. I needed some cockroaches to tell exactly what happened here, the elder vampire calmly said. He was awfully calm and didn't seem worried about the Guardians or the Holy Church breaking into the arena with their full force. But you too. Michael saw the elder vampire lick his lips. Will be my finest creations. I will rub this on their faces. I get it, Michael pointed at Noah. He has a primordial flame. Other than making potions and pills, I have no use for you. The man you tried to kill was a better alchemist than me. Michael emphasized the words primordial flame and continued, and I can run around faster. Again Michael emphasized the words run and faster. Noah felt like Ghost was talking to him. He pieced together the words he was emphasizing and connected the dots. The vampires had total control over the arena. Hence, they couldn't care less about Michael. As far as they were concerned, he was mumbling in fear. They didn't see him slaughtering their friends after all. So they were oblivious to what he was capable of. Can we make some sort of deal and work together? Michael emphasized the words work together. I can help you transfer primordial flames to you. The elder vampire frowned as Michael looked at his sword near Noah's foot. If Michael was right, the healing potion would have healed Noah by now. In the corner of his mind, Michael wished he had injected his Nanite's potion into Noah's bloodstream. However, he couldn't risk it. No matter what Noah must not find, Ghost was the Dark Lord. Michael wouldn't do anything that would jeopardize his identity. After all, Noah wasn't alone. He had Andreas with him. Primordial flame chooses the host, not the other way around. Today you will be turned. Then, you will obey every single command I have for you. Damn it, I love my freedom so much. Not to boast, but I rejected the Guardians because I don't want to work for them, Michael sighed. Soon they will all work for the great nation of Evernight. Everlight was the rise of the legendary Emperor's MC's nation, and you too will be our slaves, the elder vampire coldly snickered. Do you know something? Michael lowered his hand while his expression changed from being afraid and exhausted to cold and murderous. If one thing I hate the most, it's slavery. No. Michael shouted as he dashed at Noah as fast as he could. Sponsored content. Visit Readle. Me for extra chapters. Before the vampires could react, Noah stomped the ground to raise Ghost's swords in the air. Noah waved his hand when the swords were at his eye level, sending a stream of heaven's flame onto the swords. Immediately, the bright blue flame coiled around the two black blades. At the same time, two vampires dashed at Noah, flanking him from both sides. They were fast, but Michael was quicker because he didn't hold back. Instead, he used all the celestial energy in his body, pushing his speed to maximum. Just when the vampires were just a meter away from Noah, Michael grabbed the two swords in the air. Whoosh, whoosh. The elder vampire saw two heads flying towards him. He was shocked by Ghost's speed. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. The headless bodies staggered around, spraying blood before collapsing to the ground with a sickening thud. Compared to Dark Flame's, Heaven's Flame was much weaker and way less potent. Hence, it didn't melt Michael's swords as Michael expected. Since his sword was on Heaven's fire, they cleaved the heads through the mist like a hot knife through butter. At that moment, the vampires raised their hands. Blood beam. Several beams of crimson red light shot out from their hands towards Michael and Noah. Seeing the beams, Michael remained closer to Noah as the responsive shield absorbed all the beams, rendering them pretty much useless. Poch! Suddenly Michael felt a hot splash of blood on his face. When he turned aside, Michael saw Noah's hand sticking through a vampire's head. The vampire sneaked up on them, but Noah killed him before he could reach Michael. Realizing Michael's defense spell protecting them both, the vampires changed their battle tactics. They all just dashed at them from all directions. "Give me the sword." Michael handed his sword to Noah after he asked. The vampires closed the gap in a blink of an eye. Anyone in Noah and Michael's shoes would barely see their blurry figures. But Noah and Michael remained calm and worked together. When they reached closer, Noah and Michael stood closer with their backs against each other. Clang, clang, clang. Michael and Noah swung their swords, rotating and deflecting the vampires' claws. The faster they moved, the blurrier their figures became to the vampires. From the aerial view, one could see the two of them vaguely forming a yin-yang symbol. For the first time, they fought together. The darkness and light fought against a common enemy. Even powerful entities such as vampires couldn't touch both of them. "Cast your ring of fire," Noah shouted while fighting off the vampires. "Ring of fire." Immediately a ring of fire appeared around them. Michael wondered what Noah was planning, and soon he got his answers when Noah raised his hand, shooting out a stream of heaven's flame onto Michael's crimson-red ring of fire. The moment the two fires clashed, they merged together, forming a bright golden flame. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 50,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 50,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 50,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 50,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. The vampires burned to ashes in a flash when the golden fire touched them. Surprisingly, Michael only received half of the experience points he would normally receive. It seemed like the system deducted points by half because half of the kill was Noah's. Light beam. Noah fired a beam of light strengthened by heaven's flame straight through a vampire's head while Michael sent a powerful gust of wind blasting the vampire, dashing towards him into the fire. The power radiation the elder vampire sensed as they were fighting startled him. He had never felt such power in his life. But, of course, he was 600 years old. He experienced many anomalies, but the radiation from them was something else. What are they? Chapter 5:11 Battle intensifies. The elder vampire was in a dazed status, sensing the energy radiated from them. A moment ago, when they fought alone, he didn't feel the energy. Still, the moment they joined forces, the energy radiation overwhelmed him. While he was in a daze, Michael lifted Noah into the air by his hand, and Noah used Michael as a pole to kick the vampires around them. Blood hole. Blood tornado. Overwhelmed by Michael and Noah, the vampires cast the blood hole and the blood tornado spell at the same time as several tornadoes and red holes appeared in the ground. Having experienced the spells, Michael put his hand around Noah's neck. Hold tight. Noah nodded as he also put his hand around Michael's neck. Lightning dash. Void step. Both of them cast their speed spell at the same time to boost their speed. The two spells merged into one, forming a trail of golden light that flickered in the air, creating an otherworldly whistling sound. The golden light crisscrossed around the arena, avoiding the tornadoes. But, even for the elder vampire, it was difficult to follow the trail. So it made sense when the vampires couldn't even defend themselves before losing their heads. The red hole sucked the alchemist's bodies to the ground while the tornado destroyed the bodies. When Noah was alone, he was weakened by the darkness. Noah's weakness was nulled by teaming up with Michael, the god of darkness who drew strength from the darkness. Because of their speed, the red holes could suck them in. Compared to the suction force, their speed was much greater. As a result, the elder vampire witnessed his underlings losing heads one by one. They said he would be weakened. The elder vampire snarled, "Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is the soul refining stage level 5. When the system sounded in his head, Michael stopped running, and all the red holes and the tornadoes vanished into thin air. At that moment, only one vampire remained between them and the elder vampire. "He is all yours." Michael let Noah capture the vampire alive. He walked by Noah's side towards the vampire. They both knew the battle was far from over, as the elder vampire didn't even raise a finger yet. For now, Noah planned to incapacitate the vampire before fighting the elder vampire. After witnessing all of his friends get slaughtered by the duo, the vampire shivered. Then, fearfully, it walked backward until it tripped on a stone and fell down. "Save me," the vampire begged the elder vampire. Michael never wanted Noah to capture the vampire alive. Any information Noah gathered from the vampire would give him an edge Michael did not want Noah to have. Hence, he didn't help Noah capture the vampire. However, he could have simply injected the vampire with a paralyzing poison he hit Victor with. "Come here," the elder vampire softly spoke to the vampire. The vampire quickly picked himself up from the ground and dashed to the elder vampire's feet. Noah dashed at the elder vampire, but it was too late. First, the elder vampire engulfed the vampire in his red mist. Then, with the X-ray eyes, Michael saw the elder vampire's tongue drilling into the vampire's mouth as the vampire squirmed like a fish out of the water. In a couple of seconds, a mummified body hit the ground. Then, finally, the red shroud around the elder vampire slowly cleared up to reveal his complete physical form. The elder vampire had a bloated carcass with several yellowish tumors leaking a green goo. His body was at least 4 feet wide and 6 feet tall. The inflated belly looked like the elder vampire swallowed a whole gym ball. Now Michael fully understood why the elder vampire chose to surround himself with a misty shroud. Just the disgusting belly button alone would make anyone puke to death. On top of everything, the elder vampire was naked. The last thing Michael needed was a sight of what was between his legs. Luckily for them, the vampire's inflated belly was big enough to cover his crotch. Not that vampires had reproductive organs. Still, Michael did not wish to see that. Several strands of mucky blonde hair on the vampire's bald egg-like head creepily waved left and right to the wind's rhythm. His dirty eyes with vertically slit red pupils stared at both menacingly. Looking at his unappealing body, Noah couldn't help frowning. He had never seen such a hideous creature in his life, and he had traveled to many realms and fought countless ugly creatures. "When you want something done, you have to do it by yourself," the vampire snarled. "Light blast." Noah raised his hand without warning, sending a light beam blast at the elder vampire. Noah was fast, but the elder vampire was faster. Hence, the vampire raised his hand as a translucent energy shield materialized before him and blocked the light beam. "Heaven's flame. It's a pity I can't take it from you." The shield blocked the light beam strengthened with heaven's flame. "Chantless spell casting," Michael mumbled. It seemed as if the elder vampire was either a fusion stage cultivator or a prodigy, or the elder vampires were able to cast spells without chanting. "System, you know the drill. When the heat gets too much to handle, teleport me away," Michael said to the system in his mind. Noted, this was Michael's plan B. In case the elder vampire overwhelmed them, the system would buy a teleportation scroll and teleport him away from the arena. Else, he planned to battle and kill the elder vampire. His blood might be just the thing Michael needed to find a cure for vampirism. Moreover, he was curious to see how many badass points he would get after slaying the elder vampire. Void step. Unlike Michael, who stayed behind scheming in his head, Noah dashed at the elder vampire. Clang, clang, clang. Noah swung the sword covered with heaven's flame at the shield. Although the shield flickered, the shield did not break until a fist poked through the shield. Boom. Noah blocked the fist with his sword. However, the force behind the punch overwhelmed Noah as he was sent flinging in the air. The lack of light really suppressed Noah's power, and without Michael by his side to fight, Noah stood no chance against the elder vampire's punch. This didn't mean Michael could battle the vampire without breaking a sweat. In a blink of an eye, the elder vampire dashed at Michael after hitting Noah. Despite the elder vampire's bloated body, his speed matched Michael's speed when using the lightning dash. The elder vampire brought down his fist on Michael, who had his instincts kick in to block the punch. Michael put his arms before his face to block the punch, and when the fist collided with Michael's arm, a loud booming sound reverberated in the area. As the outcome of their collision, Michael's feet were pushed several inches into the ground. After that, the elder vampire repeatedly beat Michael like a drum. Sponsored content. Visit Rietal. Me for extra chapters. Boom, boom, boom. The elder vampire kept bashing him with his fists. Michael didn't even have a single second to breathe. To Michael, it felt like he was being slammed by an elephant. His forearm went numb by blocking the vampire's punches. If it wasn't for the APD constantly injecting him with healing potions, he would have been either dead or broken to pieces. At that moment, APD was the only thing keeping him from becoming a victim of the elder vampire. Enough. All of a sudden, Michael's eyes flared up for a second before he grabbed the vampire's hands. He manipulated the darkness, drawing strength from it to thwart the elder vampire's punches. Arg! Michael shouted as he fought against the raw strength of the vampire. The ground Michael standing on was cracking as his feet kept going deeper and deeper. Crying out loud, Michael punched the elder vampire in the belly using all his strength. Boom! The punch's force pushed back the vampire a few feet backward. One could see the ripples on the vampire's bloated belly and a tinge of surprise in his eyes. Void step. After Michael punched the vampire, Noah leaped at him in a flash. Soon, Noah appeared above the vampire's head and brought Michael's sword down the vampire's neck. Ring of fire. Immediately Michael cast the ring of fire to entrap the vampire within the circle. But in mid-air, Noah held the sword in one hand and pointed the other at the fire, sending a stream of heaven's flame to the crimson-red fire. Noah and Michael's coordination and speed stunned the vampire. Before he could even react, the crimson-red fire turned golden. These golden flames burned many of his underlings to ashes. Even though he was powerful, the elder vampire did not dare to underestimate heaven's flame. The elder vampire was a second late to react, resulting in Noah stabbing him in the shoulder. Bang! The vampire moved quickly to swat Noah away from his shoulder like a bug. Boom! Michael used the opportunity to dash at the vampire before punching him again in the stomach. Bang! With a single backhand slap, the vampire sent Michael flying just like Noah. After streaking through the ground for a few long, painful seconds, Michael picked himself up from the ground as the APD sent a dose of healing potion into his bloodstream. Noah, who stood a few meters away from Michael with tattered white robes, chugged a healing potion down and threw the vial aside. He is too strong, Noah exhaled. For a moment, the three stood without raising a finger. And you lost the sword. Michael looked at the sword stabbed into the vampire's shoulder. The sword almost looked like a needle due to the bloated size of the vampire. Annoying bugs. The vampire bore his teeth to reveal the long, razor-sharp fangs. The two fangs were long and menacing as saber-toothed canines. As he took a step forward, a large mace materialized in his hand. The mace almost looked as though it was made of blood rather than metal. With each step he took, the ground trembled. "Don't worry, your bodies will heal," the vampire menacingly grinned at Michael and Noah. If anyone else were in Noah and Michael's shoes, they would have started to shiver. The amount of pressure they both felt could crush any body-strengthening stage cultivator into a bloody pulp. Despite the pressure, they remained calm. There was no use in panicking. Boom! The elder vampire pounded a body on its way to a pulpy mess without showing any shred of sympathy for his kind. The blood vaporized into the air and entered his body. After the blood entered his body, he licked his lips. Chapter 5:12 Battle concludes. The elder vampire caught them off guard by suddenly dashing at Michael. Immediately Michael raised his sword to block the mace. Boom! The moment the sword and the mace collided, Michael's sword broke into pieces and threw him backward a couple of meters. "Now you pissed me off." Seeing the broken sword in his hand, Michael growled. He loved those two black swords, and the elder vampire broke one like a twig with a single swing. Now Michael had to forge or buy a pair of swords from the system for a ridiculously high price. The price was why Michael hadn't purchased a sword from the system. There were better choices in the auction houses than the swords in the system. Unfortunately, the system locked the ores behind an upgrade wall. So without upgrading the system to a certain level, Michael wouldn't be able to buy them. Instead of wasting his badass points on a pair of swords that could be outclassed by swords forged in this world, Michael used the black sword given to him by the Cain elders. Seeing Michael standing with a broken sword, Noah turned his head to look at the white sword behind the elder vampire, several feet away from them. "Go get it." Michael nodded at Noah before dashing at the elder vampire. The elder vampire swung his mace, sending a crescent blood wave at Noah, but Noah raised his hand, firing a stream of heaven's flame to cut through the blood wave. On the other hand, Michael reached the elder vampire and leaped onto the vampire's belly. He climbed onto the vampire's stomach as quickly as possible before the vampire could react. Bang! Michael kicked the vampire's chin with enough force to numb his feet. "Art!" the elder vampire roared, which sounded more like a roar of an annoyance than hurt. Michael tried to grab the sword sticking out of the vampire's shoulder, but before he could get his hands on it, the vampire tried to swat Michael with his big fist. Bang! Michael stomped the vampire's face, crushing its nose. Yet, the broken, crooked nose set itself in a matter of seconds. However, it pissed off the vampire as it began to grab Michael violently. Immediately Michael retrieved the tear gas vials from the system storage and broke the vials by crushing them on the vampire's head. "Fuck!" The vampire cursed as the tear gas made the vampire unable to move around by causing intense irritation to the eyes. Michael knew the tear gas could only be in effect for 10 seconds or so to a powerful being such as the elder vampire. Sometimes he was annoyed by alchemy. Almost every single potion and pill would lose its effect in front of a powerful cultivator. The celestial energy was an ultimate purifier than the arch energy. Even the most powerful poisons would be purified by celestial energy. This was why killing a cultivator above the soul refining stage was near impossible by means such as poisoning. It was also why the system charged a measly amount of 20,000 points. Granted, being an alchemist was a great way to get rich. Still, when it comes to battle capabilities, there weren't many potions and pills that could really give him an edge when battling beings with higher cultivation stages unless he could get his hands on some potent ingredients. Unfortunately, the damn system overpriced every ingredient to the point that brewing the portion would not be worth the price. Boom! The vampire had enough of Michael's annoying tactics. Hence, the vampire clobbered himself in the face with the mace. The shock wave threw Michael off balance. When he struggled to balance himself, the vampire punched him in the chest, instantly breaking several ribs. Fighting the pain, Michael cast the lightning dash to dash away from the vampire before the vampire grabbed him. Michael's arm was so numb that he didn't even feel the sting of APD. Even with the 90% pure healing potion, it would take him at least 5 to 6 minutes to heal his broken ribs. While Michael was coughing up blood, Noah leaped at the vampire with his white sword in his hand, lightning blade. Michael saw a thick bolt of lightning shooting from Noah's sword to the vampire's head. The pure white lightning momentarily blinded the vampire and flashed across the arena. Noah's lightning would have reached the vampire's head if he, a bloated, disgusting mountain of meat and fat, didn't jump in the air, overhead kicking Noah like a football. The agility and athleticism caught Noah off guard, and not only Noah but Michael too. For a moment, the bloated vampire looked like a professional football player. That overhead kick was simply too shocking. Before the elder vampire lands on the ground, a blood-red torpedo shot out of the vampire's butt and soared through Michael. Boom! It exploded when the torpedo clashed with Michael's responsive shield. Fortunately, the elder vampire wasn't stronger than a soul-refining stage cultivator. Because of that, the shield absorbed 80% of the force. But the remaining 20% forced Michael several steps backward and broke his ulna like a twig. Damn it! Michael gritted his teeth in pain. He looked down at his forearm to see a bloody broken bone sticking out through the sleeves. He couldn't even imagine what would happen to him if he didn't have the responsive shield. Shooting missiles from your butt? Real matured, you ugly fuck, Michael shouted at the vampire before pushing back the broken bone back into his forearm. It hurt like hell despite the APD sending a healing potion into his bloodstream. Noah had a look of surprise when he saw Ghost pushing back the broken bone. So many would have fainted in pain or screamed in agony. Yet, Noah saw no pain or misery on his face but intense killing intent in his eyes. After Michael set the ulna back in its place, the healing potion sped up a bit. "I had enough of this," Michael mumbled to himself and looked up at the black cloth covering the arena's rooftop. "Do you really think it's just a black cloth?" The elder vampire snickered. Sponsored content, visit Readle. Me for extra chapters. "Unless I want to, it's going nowhere. I am the overlord in this scene," the elder vampire oozed with confidence. The vampire stomped the ground as a sign of his dominance. "I am Ghost." Michael's lips curved upwards, surprising the vampire and Noah. The next moment, Noah and Michael dashed at the vampire from back and front. Noah was the one behind the vampire, while Michael cast the lightning dash spell to face him head-on from the front. System scan completed. The dark net is a web of complicated runes and arrays intervened together. The system requires 200,000 badass points to disable the dark net. He heard the system sounding in his head, and although the required badass points staggered him, to kill the elder vampire he had to spend the badass points. "Do it!" Michael yelled at the system in his mind. But, unlike Noah, he never planned to fight the elder vampire head-on. Instead, he planned to level the field by weakening the elder vampire. Sunlight was deadly to any vampire. That was why Victor or the other vampires wore dark robes covering their skin. But the elder vampire was too confident in his dark cloth blocking the sunlight. Thus, he was as naked as a newborn baby. As though Noah had read Michael's mind, Noah changed his trajectory suddenly and dashed at Michael. When they both met a few meters away from the elder vampire, Michael leaped into the air as Noah grabbed Michael's feet and boosted him into the air using all his strength. While Michael was soaring through the air towards the black cloth, Noah threw his sword in the air, which was caught by Michael just a moment before he swung the white sword at the black cloth. Preach! The vampire was startled when he heard a tearing sound. He looked at the growing tear in the black cloth, dumbstruck. Little by little, the sunlight crept through the gap, vacating the red ambience the vampires created. "It's impossible." The vampire couldn't take his eyes off the tearing black cloth. One of the most powerful weapons the vampires had was destroyed in a matter of seconds. He spent the best years of his life perfecting the black cloth, only to fail. Meanwhile, Noah felt the light coming through the gap restoring his power. Noah gained power while Michael lost his power boost as the darkness was being replaced by light. Still, it was worth the trade-off because the light weakened the elder vampire more than it did to him. Even without the darkness, Michael was a soul-refining stage cultivator and still strong. But the same could not be said of the vampire, as his power took a nosedive. Boom! Suddenly, Noah shot into the air from the ground like a rocket, cutting through the air. In mid-air, Noah grabbed Michael's hand, which was holding his white sword. They pointed the sword toward the vampire, diving down. The two of them looked like a meteor soaring through the air, creating a trail blaze. At that moment, Noah and Michael shared the same sword and aim, killing the elder vampire. The elder vampire's battle instincts kicked in as he raised the mace in the air to deflect the sword. Additionally, the translucent red shield bubbled around the vampire, who had no longer wished to stay in the arena because of the sunlight. Boom! However, when the duo and the shield collided, the vampire's blood shield shattered into hundreds of tiny shards. The shock wave burned everything around them in a 10-meter radius. Poch! Noah and Michael did not stop as they entered through the vampire's chest, forming a vast hole and appearing out in the back, completely drenched in blood. The elder vampire screamed in agony as his skin began to smoke. In a couple of seconds, the sunlight completely burned his skin. Then, coupled with the huge hole in his chest, the vampire staggered aimlessly. Finally, after a long, tiresome battle, they slew the elder vampire. However, Michael frowned as he didn't hear any notification from the system or receive any experience points. For some reason, Michael had a bad feeling in his guts, and when he turned his head, he saw the same concern on Noah's face. Chapter 5:13 Noah and Michael dead? Noah and Michael stared at the fallen vampire without batting an eye. Then, all of a sudden, the vampire began twitching his limbs. Soon, his whole bloated carcass trembled violently as yellowish goo oozed out of the tumors in his body. The strong putrid smell of ammonia and sulfur overwhelmed Michael's senses. It was quite nauseating as Michael had a strong urge to throw up. His face was turning green when the vampire's body began to bloat while his body released a green mist. "He's gonna explode," suddenly Noah shouted. In a snap of time, Noah cast the void step, grabbed Michael by his hand, and dashed into the air. Michael had zero clue how Noah found the vampire was about to explode. But just as he said, the vampire's body bloated rapidly, releasing more and more green mist until it exploded. The explosion wasn't a small one. It was as though a mini atomic bomb had gone off. One could see the mushroom cloud from 100 miles away. Every single building within the 1-mile radius from the arena turned into ruin, and the Alchemy Guild, one of the oldest buildings on the Azer continent, crumbled down. Almost for an hour, no one could get closer to the arena, which was now nothing but a crater of ashes. Then, as Mother Nature had given the city her blessing, the dark rain clouds gathered above the arena and began to shower the city with heavy rain. The heavy rain quenched the heat radiation and settled the dust clouds around the arena. The rain also put the houses on fire and prevented the fire from spreading. At that moment, the sky was full of people and warships. The Guardians, the Holy Church, the King's men, and every single noble family in Idrizel arrived at the arena to fight the vampires. It was a real pity that many were caught in the explosion and burnt to a crisp. Still, each of them received backup and brought their own runemasters and mages to control the fire and isolate the area. Since the dust storm settled down, revealing the ground below, several people descended to investigate the area. Alicia and Norvin were among them. "Noah!" As soon as Alicia's feet touched the ground, she shouted out loud. "Careful, what the hell happened here? Can you see anything?" The guardians behind her murmured. The heavy smoke and the ash from the explosion prevented them from seeing everything clearly. There was nothing but smoke and ashes as far as they could see. While they were aimlessly strolling in the smoke, a group of 12 men robed in pure white robes appeared above the ruins. The long white beard, the staff in their hands, and the pointy hats on their heads gave them an exotic mage vibe. Right at that moment, they formed a circle around the ruins. Surprisingly, the heavy rain couldn't drench them as it drenched everyone else. These mages remained as dry as a desert possible because of the translucent force field around them. Air purification. Each of them chanted the word as they raised their staffs in the sky. From each staff, a bright light shot to the sky and met at a center point, forming a radiant orb of light. A few seconds passed when the orb of light transformed into a spinning chakra with a mile radius. Countless indistinguishable signs and letters formed the chakra. The chakra's brilliance lit the entire city of Oxshore and provided the people the comfort they needed. As the chakra rotated, sucking the heavy smoke and ashes, the chakra swirled in the sky, purifying the air until Alicia and the others could vividly see what was in front of them, which was nothing but barren lands. Alicia couldn't recognize the place at all. She felt as though she stepped into a desert only with ash instead of sand. As far as her eyes could see, she found nothing, not even a brick. "Look!" Alicia immediately turned to the man who shouted to see a skeleton, and when the man touched it, the skeleton crumbled into white dust. Meanwhile, more and more people landed on the ground, including Olivia and Aishan. They joined in the search for Noah and Ghost. To be honest, only Olivia came to search for Ghost while the Guardians focused on finding Noah. But, deep down, Alicia wanted Ghost to be one of those skeletons. Since Olivia had no sway with the Guardians and they had already refused to search for Ghost, she began to run around the barren lands searching for her teacher. But, of course, if this happened in Elon, the entire river town and the Sunrise sect would have been on the scene. But unfortunately, Michael had no connections in the Azer continent. If anyone could survive this, it's Noah. Seeing Alicia's eyes watering up, Norvin gently patted her on the head. While they were scouring through the ashes, a group of 12 men dressed in silver armor with the crest of the Guardian Guild on their chest landed on the ground. The one who led the group was a tall, domineering elf with striking blonde hair, Tanulia Velrin, aka the Alpha Guardian of Hunter Guardians. I want every inch of this place searched. Coordinate with the Holy Church Guards. No stones unturned, got it? Yes, Alpha Guardian. The guardians behind Tanulia raised their voices, and each of them dashed in a direction to search the premises. We will find Noah, Tanulia said when he came to Alicia and Norvin. Grandmaster Aishan. Tanulia then turned her gaze towards Aishan, who was still looking pale and terrified. How is Lord Hendrix? He is now stable. The healers asked him to take a rest. I have assigned my best men to protect him. His safety is our top priority right now, Ghost. Their conversation was abruptly cut short when suddenly a panicked voice reverberated in the area. They all looked in the direction of the voice to see Olivia frantically digging through the ashes. They all rushed at Olivia and saw a hand sticking out of the ash. Quick! Tanulia shouted at the men surrounding her. But no one needed an order as they had already begun to dig the ashes. Alicia and Norvin joined in the digging. The more they dug, the more they uncovered Ghost's body. While digging, Norvin felt another hand beside Ghost. His speed doubled, thinking it might be Noah. Just as he guessed, when Norvin and Alicia dug out the ashes, they uncovered Noah's body. Sponsored content. Visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. Together, they all finally managed to dig out Ghost and Noah. Unfortunately, both of them were in pretty bad shape. Their clothes were burned and torn up. Several parts of their body, such as hands, neck, and legs, were covered in burn wounds, and they could even see Noah's femur sticking out of his leg through the pants. Are they alive? Aishan asked while the guardians were carrying them away from the dig site. He has a pulse. Olivia grabbed Michael's hand and sensed a weak pulse. Bring me the healers. Tanulia shouted as several guardians flew out of the ruins to bring the healers to her. Meanwhile, the guardians placed 2 wooden beds on the ground instead of taking them out of the crater. The rain slowly washed off the ashes on their faces. Alicia and Olivia's tears also hit their faces along with the raindrops. What are you doing? Looking at Olivia taking out a healing potion from her space ring, Tanulia questioned her, but instead of responding to Tanulia, Olivia gently poured the healing potion on Michael's neck, which was severely burned by the explosion. The potion healed up the wound but not the marks. Afterward, Olivia took out another potion and gently poured it into Michael's mouth. Wake up, Ghost. Olivia could barely speak those words through her lumped throat. Most of the sparkling potion leaked out of his mouth. This was why the others waited for the healers. Instead of dumbly pouring the potion down an unconscious man's throat, the healers would turn the healing potion into an easily absorbed vapor and send it through the patient's skin pores. However, Olivia had neither patience nor trust in the Guardians after she read how they try to drive people by hiding the vampire's existence from the world. As a result, not only Olivia but many people shared her thoughts and lost faith in the Guardians. After what happened in Idrizel spread across the world, the majority of the people would blame the Guardians. However, the Holy Church was already on a secret mission to dethrone the Guardians. Today, they received an ultimate weapon to use against the Guardians. Tanulia or the others didn't give a damn about Ghost. Hence, they didn't stop Olivia from pouring vial after vial into his mouth. Instead, except for Aishan, they all focused solely on Noah. Suddenly, before the healers could arrive, Ghost's finger twitched. Ghost! The sight of Ghost's pinky finger twitching may be the happiest memory she had ever experienced. Michael gasped for the air, opening his mouth. Immediately, the healing potion in his mouth went down his throat. As soon as the healing potion reached his throat, the wounds on his body began to close up. The redness gradually returned to his body as they all stared at Ghost's breathing, getting heavier and heavier. Looking at Ghost responding to the healing potion, Alicia wasted no time. She took out a bunch of healing potions Noah brewed and smeared them on Noah. Wait for the healers. Tanulia didn't want Alicia to choke Noah with healing potions. She had witnessed many unconscious soldiers die because their fellow soldiers tried to pour down healing potions down their throats. There was a reason why the battlefield had healers and tents to treat unconscious soldiers. With a flick of her wrist, Tanulia paralyzed Alicia before she killed Noah. On the other hand, Olivia kept shaking Ghost by his shoulder. His eyes abruptly opened, shocking everyone. Uek! As soon as he opened his eyes, he turned his head, throwing up blood. Ghost! Olivia's motherly instincts kicked in as she held his head sideways to make his vomiting as comfortable as possible. She kept patting and brushing his back while Michael continued to throw up blood. A few minutes later, Michael finally stopped coughing up blood. He took out a healing potion and chugged in one gulp. Teacher, Olivia said, but Michael raised his finger, wordlessly telling her to wait. He then stood up from the bed and took out another glimmering jade vial. Under their stunned gazes, he emptied the potion into his mouth. The miraculous potion healed his burned skin, visible to the naked eye. Arg, Michael growled as he rotated his head, producing cracking noise. I am never judging a competition again. Chapter 514 Noah warns Alicia. Michael spit a bit more blood and took out a leather pouch from his system storage. Teacher, Olivia tried to say something, but Michael raised his finger as he took a long sip of water. He kept drinking until Tanulia cleared her throat. What happened here? Instead of answering Tanulia, Michael looked at Noah, who lay on the bed unconscious. Give this to him if you want to save him. Michael took out a sparkling healing potion Olivia used on him and threw it at Tanulia. His pulses are fading. You should act quickly. Where the fuck are the healers? Alicia shouted. He is right, Norvin nodded. We can't waste a single second. Soon, the golden Babaru snatched away the healing potion from Tanulia and poured the potion into Noah's mouth before anyone could stop him. As a golden Babaru, not only could he sense life signs but also sense whether something was poisonous or not. Hence, Norvin didn't hesitate to give Noah the healing potion because he sensed no poisonous energy. His finger twitched as soon as Michael's potion touched Noah's mouth. Michael sighed inside. He never thought he would be indebted to Noah. Yet, when the vampire exploded, Noah saved him by casting a protective shield around them. Besides, the system surprisingly urged Michael to save Noah. As for why, the system gave him no answer. So if it weren't for the system, Michael would have left Noah to die. Noah! Alicia shouted, tears rolling down her rosy cheeks. How long was I out? Michael asked Olivia, ignoring Alicia. Despite the risk he took, Michael received only 300,000 experience potions and 10,000 badass points for killing the elder vampire. Michael wasn't happy with what he received since he almost died. After the elder vampire exploded, Noah cast a protective light shield around them. But unfortunately, the shield could only cover one person and Noah let the shield save Michael instead of himself. Michael would have chosen himself and not Noah if the roles were turned. 6 hours, Olivia shocked Michael. Damn it, Michael yelled at himself. He was completely unconscious. This was the closest Michael came to death. When he and Noah went through the elder vampire's body, he took a flesh and blood sample. At least something was worth the risk. Using the samples, Michael was confident of brewing a potion that might cure vampirism. Tell us what happened, Tanulia coldly exclaimed. Vampires happened. Didn't those who escaped tell you? Michael stretched his arms and legs while responding to Tanulia. He looked down on him to see his clothes ripped and torn. The black robes now looked dirty brown. Under their gazes, Michael poured down the water in the pouch onto his head, washing the ashes off of his hair. Then he willed the system to equip a new set of robes. The explosion. Tell us about that, Tanulia asked, not minding he's changing his robes like he was going on a vacation. You know the one scary one who tried to kill Lord Hendrix? Michael asked, looking at Aishan as the old man nodded. He exploded. For a few moments, no one uttered a word until Norvin managed to find words. Why? Because we killed him. Who do you think cut open the blanket covering the arena? A glint of shock and surprise emerged in Tanulia's eyes. Michael expected her to be shocked. Obviously, the Guardians would have tried to destroy the Dark Cloth and failed. Michael paid a whopping 200,000 badass points to disable the runes and arrays into the Dark Net. If the system charged that much, there was no way the Guardians could have cut through the Dark Net in a short amount of time. Thus, her shock didn't surprise Michael. Subsequently, Noah coughed up blood just as Michael did. Michael was glad to see everyone was focusing on Noah instead of him. "I assume your competition got the boot?" Olivia cried and laughed at the same time as Michael wrapped his hand around her shoulder. "I am sure your team would have won the competition." Michael rubbed her shoulder playfully. "I don't give a damn about the competition. You scared me to death," she purred like a little girl. "Next time, I will run away with you. Happy?" Michael laughed. Michael turned his back on Tanulia and her group to leave the area when he heard Tanulia's voice once again. "You cannot leave." Olivia saw the smile on Michael's face vanish into thin air. He turned back and looked Tanulia in the eyes. "Why? 1. We still haven't figured out what happened here. 2nd, we have a witness claiming you killed Lord Gabriel." Several dark lines formed on his face as he creased his brows. Standing beside Michael, Olivia shared the same look. "Killed Gabriel? Ghost tried to save him. I saw that in Grandmaster Aishan too." Olivia defended Michael. Michael turned his gaze to Aishan, who immediately avoided direct eye contact. "I'm not sure what I saw. Everything happened so fast." At this exact moment, Michael had a strong urge to kill Aishan. However, it wouldn't take a genius to figure out that the witness was none other than Alicia, who held a grudge against Michael for exposing her brother and destroying his life. At that moment, Michael regretted not killing Peter in the forest when they first met. When Michael gazed at Alicia, Norvin felt a chill looking at Michael's eyes. They were the eyes of a killer, and every fiber in Norvin's body told him that Ghost was not just a killer but a predator. He sensed an overwhelming power within Ghost that could rival the power of Noah himself. Since Norvin didn't wholly comprehend his newly found powers, he couldn't make any connection between Noah and Ghost. As far as he was concerned, the power radiation he felt might be because of Ghost's higher cultivation stage. "Are you arresting me?" Michael tilted his head. If everything went according to his plan, the Alpha Guardian wouldn't be alive to arrest him in a few days. "Don't act so innocent. I saw everything. You let him go. You killed him," Alicia roared. Sponsored content. Visit Rietal. Me for extra chapters. Alicia couldn't stay silent for long. Her hatred and anger blinded her mind and made her ignore Noah for a few moments. "I didn't." Michael simply shrugged. "Of course, Michael killed Gabriel. He intentionally shot lightning bolts at Gabriel so he would lose his grip and fly into the red hole. Unfortunately, he didn't anticipate Alicia's quick reflex to grab him and Aishan's interference. Gabriel would have been alive if Michael didn't grab him before he could be pushed away from the suction force. But instead, Aishan, the old bastard, interfered and tried to save Gabriel. Unfortunately for Gabriel, Michael had already fixed his mind about killing Gabriel. Gabriel's hands weren't slipping away. Instead, Michael was the one who let him go. "Oh, is this about your vigilante brother? What was his name? Peter?" Michael pouted to mock her. As soon as Alicia heard Ghost uttering her brother's name, she lost it. The golden spear still burning with heaven's flame materialized in her arms. Just as she was about to leap at him, a hand grabbed her spear and stopped her. They all looked down to see Noah opening his eyes. "I will tell you everything that happened here." Noah rose from the bed. "If anything, we should thank him for helping me take down the vampire," Noah calmly said to Tanulia. To be honest, Noah didn't like the way Tanulia treated Ghost. As far as Noah was concerned, if it weren't for Ghost, the elder vampire would have killed him and his friends. But once again Ghost helped him. "We can let them go." Despite talking to an Alpha Guardian, Noah seemed domineering. His voice contained an authority that made Tanulia's tone weaker. Noah then turned to look at Ghost, who was slightly surprised by Noah's words. "I thank you on behalf of the Guardians for your help, Ghost. I'm in your debt." "Well, it's your lucky day as you have a chance to pay the debt." Michael yet again completely ignored Alicia and smiled. "You've been engaged to her." Michael looked at Olivia and then turned back his gaze to Noah. but she's in love with someone else. So I'd appreciate it if you annul the marriage agreement. Consider it done. Noah nodded. Olivia felt like a mountain of pressure being lifted off her shoulder. She let out a deep sigh. Thank you, Master Noah. Olivia bowed to show her gratitude. She didn't expect Noah to be so generous. So many young masters considered annulling a marriage a shame, but Noah was so benevolent. No, I should be the one asking your forgiveness. If I knew you were in love with someone and didn't like the marriage, I wouldn't have agreed to it. No. How could you have known? Olivia shook her head. Now that everyone got what they want, I should take my leave, Ghost. When Michael was about to turn back and leave, Noah called him. Michael saw Noah extending his arm, and with a nod, Michael firmly shook Noah's hands. After everything was said and done, Michael left the place with Olivia. They both shot towards the sky and disappeared into the dark clouds, leaving Noah's group behind. What was that? The moment Michael disappeared into the clouds, Tanulia coldly asked Noah, Forgive me for taking up the authority, Alpha Guardian. But we need to make allies instead of enemies. This vampire threat is not a joke. A single vampire decimated one of the highly protected places in an hour. Noah looked around and sighed. If we want to defeat them, we need powerful allies. Considering Tanulia knew about Noah's identity and how important he was to the guild, she remained calm, although she didn't like how Noah interjected and disrespected her rank. Then Noah turned his gaze towards Alicia, who was trembling in anger. And Alicia, the sooner you accept what your brother did was wrong, the better. If it weren't for Ghost, someone else would have exposed him. Norvin's jaw dropped a few inches as he was utterly shocked by how coldly Noah talked to his sweetheart. It was the first time Norvin had seen Noah treat Alicia coldly. The burning spear in her hands disappeared, along with the anger in her eyes. Instead, her eyes got filled with tears. This feud of yours with Ghost ends now. We would investigate impartially and serve justice if he had anything to do with Lord Gabriel's death. Do not let your hatred blind your mind. Chapter 5:15 Future Plans of Michael, My Lord. When Michael entered his room in the dark forest, Azazel welcomed him with a bow. However, as soon as he entered the room, the red orbs began to radiate a dim crimson red light. Dude, you look like crap. What the hell happened? Iag, who was eating potato chips made by Raylene, asked Michael. He may have changed his robes and washed his face using the rainwater, but he still looked extremely exhausted and pale. The moment he reached the bedside, he collapsed to the bed just a few inches away from Vidora. I fought an elder vampire, Michael sighed. After hearing his words, Iag dropped the chip in her mouth back into the silver bowl. Did I tell you I fought with Noah? Michael said, looking at the dark ceiling. Then, he turned his head to look at Azazel before Vidora could ask what happened in Idrizel from the beginning. Connect me to Eladir. Something is drilling my mind, and I think he may have an answer. As you wish, my lord. Azazel waved his ghostly hand as a 32-inch mirror materialized in the air a few meters away from the bed. Michael rose and willed the system to establish a connection with Eladir through the earpiece. Several seconds later, the mirror flickered as Eladir appeared in the mirror. Currently, Michael could see numerous drawings on the wall behind him and a messy bed behind him. My lord, Eladir slightly bent his waist to show his respect. Is there a god of light, Eladir? Michael's sudden question put a frown on Eladir's face. Not as far as I know, my lord. But when you, the god of darkness, exist, it wouldn't be illogical to say there is a god of light too. May I inquire why you suddenly asked me this, my lord? Because I think Noah is not only the successor of Andreas. I think he is also the god of light. Michael's voice was grave. In fact, Vidora or Azazel had never heard this much seriousness in his voice before. Why do you think that, my lord? Michael let out a long sigh and began narrating what happened in the competition from the beginning. None of them uttered a word after Michael finished his story. Eladir finally broke the gloomy silence. Light spells, drawing power from the light, darkness weakening him, Andreas choosing him to be the successor and trains to defeat the Dark Lord. Eladir rubbed his chin as his voice trailed off. Everything makes sense, my lord. You might be right, said Eladir after pondering the matter for a long few moments. That must have been the reason why the system told me to wait until it reaches version 8. He is a god. Just like me, Michael said to himself. If it's true, we have to be more cautious than ever before. Michael heard Cain as everyone except Michael locked their gazes with Cain. Also, if you could connect the dots, Noah might be too. So we have to stay as far as possible from him. Hearing them, Ayag couldn't help rolling her eyes. Why can't we just go and kill him while he's still weak? No, Eladir immediately raised his voice. We must not underestimate Andreas and the Skyhall. You have only one runemaster me. But they have countless, and if I'm right, Andreas would have made sure no harm comes to Noah. Michael agreed with Eladir with a nod. When Michael injected Noah with a healing potion using the APD, he felt a gentle force resisting the potion for a moment. To Michael, it felt as though Noah's body scanned the potion and filtered it before letting the potion into his bloodstream. In case Michael tried to inject Noah with blood tonic, he had a feeling Noah's body would have rejected it by destroying the nanites. As Michael was deep in thoughts, Eladir once again broke the silence that haunted the room. The best course of action would be to stay away from Noah and raise your army in the shadows for the great war yet to come, my lord. Where should we go? Sarba felt a lump forming in his throat in the sadness of leaving the place he has grown to love. Ghost will go to R. Michael cracked his neck as his mind quickly formed a plan. Let me guess. You are planning to kill more people in Elon as Lucifer. Michael nodded but chose not to explain in detail. He couldn't just say he has to get more experience points by killing people so he could get stronger. Why not Jisel? We are absolutely safe there, asked Sarba as Michael sighed. We can't be sure until we know everything about the Guardians and the Skyhall. Then what's the plan? Aya asked Michael as he turned back to look at them. Simple. Ghost will move to Ar and establish himself there. Lucifer will eradicate Noah's potential allies and weaken him in Elon and Azair. The Dark Lord will build an army in the southern continent. I can feel the excitement in my veins. Ayag grinned. Do you have a contact in Ar, my lord? Azazel asked Michael and draw Michael's gaze towards him. Eve Voldegard. As soon as Michael uttered the name, a glint of surprise emerged in Eladir's face. Voldegard? Is she a relative of Lane Voldegard? Michael nodded. Yes. She didn't talk about Professor Lane, but I think there is some history between Lane and Voldegards. I will gather more information and try to exploit whatever there is to strengthen ourselves. Michael looked at everyone to see if anyone had something to say. However, they all nodded in agreement with his plan. When are you and Gaia coming here? We should all move to R together. Speaking of Gaia, where is that snake? Ayag smiled. Although Ayag didn't show, she missed having Gaia around so much. Without her, the dark mansion felt gloomier than ever. It was rare to see a Lydie smile, but thinking about Gaia, his lips curved upward, revealing an alluring smile. Sponsored content. Visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. She is having the best time of her life in the combat class. Yesterday she brought hundreds of snakes and set them free in the classroom. There are still many students in the infirmary healing. These snakes were poisonous? Asked Aya with a devilish grin. Very nice. Damn it. I wish we were there to see them screaming and crying. Did they scream and cry? Ayag tilted her head as Eladir nodded, brightening her face even more. Tell her not to overdo it. She needs to teach them something to maintain her cover. Eladir rubbed his eyes, fighting the urge to sleep. I already did. By the way, we will be there by next week. Then we can finally finish the mortars. Michael could see the exhaustion and sleepiness in his eyes. Hence, Michael didn't keep him any longer. Take some shut-eye, Eladir. You can't function best if your brain and body are desperate for rest. I will, my lord. After that, the mirror flickered again before turning completely dark. Then with a flick of his wrist, Michael took out Lucifer's suit of armor and put it on an armor stand. The armor looked as menacing as ever with its dark metallic platings and crimson-red linings. When I fought the elder vampire, I realized one of my biggest weaknesses. Michael ran his fingers through the armor. What is that? Asked Ayag. Armor. Michael simply said, This armor might look fancy, but it can't protect me from spell attacks. I need stronger armor. For both Lucifer and Ghost, who needs a suit of armor more than Lucifer, while fighting as the Dark Lord, Michael could unleash his full power without worrying about exposing his identity. Hence, Michael was relatively safe fighting as Lucifer than as Ghost. Granted, there were cool clothes in the system store, but they were not armors. To forge stronger armor, he needed stronger materials. Unfortunately, the system locked the ores and armor materials under an upgrade wall. In other words, until he upgrades the system to version 8, he wouldn't be able to buy a suit of armor or any materials from the store to forge a stronger unique armor. However, it never stopped Michael from getting what he wanted. The Aqua auction might have what I need to forge armor. Eve said she knows some blacksmiths who are capable of forging any sort of armor. Also, we should recruit a loyal blacksmith. R might be a good place to start looking for suitable candidates, Kane reminded Michael. To become a blacksmith himself, Michael would have to pay the system a whopping 700,000 badass points, and it would make him just a 1-star blacksmith. However, if he found one with a blacksmith specialty, he could turn him or her into a 5-star blacksmith for 1.2 million badass points. Compared to alchemy, smithing was in a different realm. But, coupled with his inventor trait, Michael knew he would be able to create some nasty weapons that could change the tide of the war. Of course, Michael planned to become one himself in the future. But for now, recruiting someone else seemed like the cost-effective and plausible way. He wished Jack was here because Jack had all the requirements to become his personal blacksmith. His death was really a loss for Michael. Loyalty should be the key here, Sarba said in his soft voice as though he read Michael's mind. I am pretty sure we can find a desperate dwarf who would be willing to become the Dark Lord's subordinate in R. Michael devilishly grinned. Excitement rushed through his veins, thinking he was finally going to R, the most powerful continent of all. My lord, suddenly Azazel called him as Michael turned around. Today is the day we asked Miss Peyton to meet you in Maven. Oh, the assassination of the Alpha Guardian. I almost forgot about that. But you haven't killed her yet? Iag asked Michael. I will. Let's go meet Peyton, shall we? Michael willed the system to equip his armor as the suit of armor vanished from the stand and appeared on Michael except for the last piece, mask. It appeared in Michael's hands as he slowly put it on his face. Where are we going? Asked Sarba as they flapped their tiny wings to take off from the bed to Michael's shoulder. To the crypt. Michael activated the runic teleportation, and the next moment he just vanished into thin air, leaving Azazel behind. Chapter 5:16 Tanulia's brutal death under the sky of perfect midnight velvet, under stars so brilliant they drew the eyes heaven-bound, the music softly played by crickets and the ever-expanding ocean in front of Tanulia, made every second waiting for the vampire she was supposed to meet a beautiful yet heart-beating experience. She gazed at those bright friends of the moon and their pattern that seemed so fixed and yet ever-changing while the waves gently brushed over her feet. Her silver robes, adorned with golden engravings, fluttered in the wind, dancing to the rhythm of the sea along with her striking golden hair. It had been an hour since Tanulia arrived at the marked location on the parchment she received from a mysterious vampire. As far as her eyes could see, there was nothing but the ocean and an empty beach void of any life signs except a boulder 20 or so meters away from Tanulia. Regardless of waiting for a vampire in the middle of the night with no one around her, Tanulia had no fear in her heart at all. She was trained to remain calm and collected despite the situation by her mentors ever since she was born. The Alpha Guardian was not just a position. It was a state of mind. She was patiently waiting for the vampire and looking at the half-moon in the sky until she noticed a figure flying through the puffy white clouds accompanying the moon. The figure slowly descended onto the shot several meters away from her. The dark figure just arrived at the scene was tall, neither too skinny nor bulky, and wore ragged brown robes and a cloak to cover his face. Tanulia had seen beggars in much better condition than the man in front of her. However, she didn't show any scorn since she was not here to comment on his fashion sense but to do something that would save many lives. Tanulia Vren, Tenulia heard the man speak in an otherworldly, distorted voice that almost sounded mechanical. "And you're the one who sent the potion and this?" She slowly moved her hands to her waist and took out a parchment in her belt wrapped around her perfect slender waist. Since Tenulia was in civilian robes instead of her usual silver armor, one could clearly see her flawless hourglass structure. Furthermore, although the robes covered her arms, they failed to hide her muscle definition, which added an extra layer of charm to her beauty. "Your people slaughtered hundreds of innocents today in Idrizel." Her eyes glimmered with rage and fury. "That was a payback for what you humans had done to Nulia Valrin. Secrecy is the lifeblood of Nightwalkers. When it's threatened, it's only natural we retaliate." The words sounded colder than the words spoken by Tenulia. "Name your price for curing Tiriana." Tenulia didn't beat around the bush. Instead, she directly asked for the cure so she could save Tiriana, who was dying little by little painfully. "We have heard you're spinning the blame on today's message on rogue cultivators." By message, you meant the massacre, right? "You can take it however you want, Tenulia Valrin. We wanted to send you a message and we did. Now we demand you turn us into a myth again. Otherwise, you will receive more and more messages every single week until..." The vampire paused for a moment to let everything he just said sink into her skull. "All humans are eradicated from the face of this world." Tenulia clenched her fist as the veins in her face bulged up. One could literally hear her grinding her teeth if they stood beside her. "You want us to cover up your existence. A little bit late for that after your message, don't you think? That's your problem, and you're getting the wrong idea here, Tenulia Valrin. We are not here to negotiate. I'm here to tell you what you have to do to save your species," the vampire sternly said, leaving no chance for her to talk back. After hearing from Noah what happened in the Aqua Clan arena and what the vampires did to the people there, she did not dare to underestimate the vampires. Just a group of vampires massacred hundreds of people and prevented anyone from saving them. In a matter of a few hours, the vampires eradicated 80% of the alchemists in Elon and Azair. As a result, an alchemist's value on both continents would skyrocket in the future as the vampires created a massive void in the alchemy world. "What about Tiriana? She can't survive until we do the impossible. Your drinking this potion is the price for saving her life." The vampire opened his palms to reveal a brownish potion glimmering from within. "Is that poison?" "No," the vampire shook his head. Since he had a cloak and mask covering his face, Tenulia couldn't see his expressions. But judging by the tone of his voice, she could tell he didn't give a damn about her life at all. "If we wanted to kill you, we would have done it by now. We, Nightwalkers, don't use underhanded tactics like your species." The potion floated towards Tenulia, revealing that the vampires could use arch energy within the void line. Tenulia blankly stared at the potion hovering in the air in front of her before grabbing it. She looked at the potion in her hand without any idea what it would do if she took it. "Do I have to take your word on that? How do I believe it's not the same poison you gave to Tiriana?" "You don't. If you value your friend's life, this is the price." With her eyes watering up, Tenulia opened the vial. She expected the air around her to smell different, but contrary, nothing changed as she still smelled the fresh salty air as before. The vampire stared at her, lifting the potion towards her mouth and pouring it slowly into her mouth. As soon as she emptied the vial, blood seeped through her nostrils. She slowly lost the strength in her legs as everything around her turned blurry. "You!" She tried to say something, but a mouthful of blood sprayed out of her mouth instead of words. Then her skin turned paler than a white sheet in a few blinks of an eye. Finally, Tenulia collapsed on the sandy shore. Her body frantically twitched as blood seeped out from every pore in her skin, drenching her silvery robes with her blood. The sand beneath her slowly turned red around her. Her gaze fused with shock and rage, still locked onto the vampire until the light of life finally left her eyes. "Peyton," the vampire called out when Tenulia's body stopped twitching. Sponsored content. Visit Rietal. Me for extra chapters. For a few moments, there was nothing but the sound of ocean breeze and waves that haunted the arena. Then, several seconds later, A figure walked out of the boulder's shadow out of the blue. Currently dressed in black robes from head to toe, Peyton strolled toward Tanulia's body. Is she dead? Peyton removed the cloak covering her head to reveal her face. She turned her blood-red eyes towards the vampire and saw him nodding his head. Her face twitched, showing the burning anger in her heart. I have to make sure, Peyton coldly snickered before retrieving a gray dagger hanging on her waist. Bitch! Peyton kicked Tanulia in the gut furiously and continued to do so to vent her anger. Seeing a decorated guardian such as Tanulia's corpse getting kicked mercilessly by another guardian was sickening. Peyton kicked and stomped Tanulia's body to the point she started to hear bones cracking in Tanulia's body. Then she dropped to her knees. You betrayed me. Peyton raised her dagger in the air as far as she could and brought it down onto Tanulia's chest pulch. The blood sprayed out from Tanulia's chest as Peyton kept stabbing her repeatedly. Her rosy face was painted red with the blood sprayed onto her face. Still, Peyton continued to skewer Tanulia until she couldn't raise her hand anymore. After she was done stabbing Tanulia's dead body, Peyton turned around to look at the vampire. Under her murderous gaze, he removed his brown robes, revealing the dark metallic armor beneath. Dark Lord, Peyton mumbled, looking at his terrifying stature. I fulfilled my end of the bargain. Tanulia Valrin is no more, he said, stepping towards her. The vampires will be blamed for her death. Peyton sensed his voice changing from mechanical distorted to cold demonic voice. Peyton stared at his crimson red eyes for a few moments in silence. A year ago, she began her journey to hunt down Lucifer so she could climb up the ladders in the guild. A year later, after spilling so much blood and sweat, she stood in front of the Dark Lord with the blood of Tanulia Valrin in her hands. What do we do with the body? Peyton looked at Tanulia's body. Then, she took a few steps away from the body while the Dark Lord stepped closer to Tanulia. Peyton saw the Dark Lord looking at Tanulia from top to bottom. What a pity! She would have made a fine subordinate. Peyton could swear that she almost sensed a bit of compassion in his voice. Letting out a sigh, the Dark Lord turned around. At that moment, Peyton was only a hand-reaching distance from him. Peyton took a deep breath looking directly into his crimson red eyes. Afterward, she threw the dagger away and dropped to her knees. For a few seconds, she looked at the sand, and then she finally looked up at him. Her heart was pounding against her chest as everything around her seemed to have stopped. Suddenly, Tanulia's body behind the Dark Lord moved out of nowhere. Within a blink of an eye, Tanulia's hand grabbed the Dark Lord's legs. The Dark Lord shuddered, but before he could react, a golden sword engraved with hundreds of glowing runes materialized in Peyton's hand. Poch! She stabbed the Dark Lord with lightning speed and twisted the sword. At the same time, a golden rope appeared around his feet. Teleport now, bitch! Peyton grinned as she sent the sword deeper into his guts. Chapter 517 Capturing the Dark Lord. As soon as Peyton stabbed the Dark Lord in the guts and Tanulia, who pretended to be dead, cuffed him with a chain of Valhalla, a gigantic warship aka the Floating Fortress, appeared out of the blue in the sky. The ship cast a giant shadow on the beach, but soon, a powerful beam of light shot out from the ship, putting the Dark Lord in the center of the spotlight. The warship itself looked thrice the size of a man of war and resembled the shape too. Except the warship floated in the air instead of on the sea. The hull was built with strong yet lightweight metal and fitted with 30 cannons on a row, and there were 5 rows of cannons on one side. The glistening blue light of the half-moon reflected on the ship's silvery hull, making the ship look like a giant gem in the sky. In addition to the massive 4 masts fitted with golden sails, the ship was equipped with giant propulsors in the back to fly the ship and easily maneuver it in the sky. A statue resembling Tanulia was the figurehead as a wolf head was engraved onto the hull and the sails. The warship functioned as Tanulia's headquarters in the southern continent. Aside from its domineering look, the ship had many powerful weapons and functionalities. For example, the ship was equipped with camouflaging runes, which was why the ship remained undetected above their heads. Since there was no arch energy in the atmosphere on the southern continent, Specialized runes and devices were designed to draw power from the moonlight and heat produced by burning a ton of coal. "Get him up!" Peyton shouted at the sky as the ship's belly opened up, releasing a floor panel attached to ropes. When the wooden panel hit the ground, Peyton grabbed the Dark Lord by his neck and moved him towards the wooden board. While walking, Peyton twisted the sword more to inflict maximum pain on the Dark Lord. But, considering the sword would release a potent paralyzing poison into the bloodstream of its victim, she wasn't surprised to see Dark Lord moving without struggling. Peyton and Tanulia were glad to see the sword and the chain of Valhalla working on the Dark Lord. Although they were forged by the best blacksmiths and enhanced by 6-star runemasters of Skyhall, the two had doubts. The last time they managed to catch the Dark Lord, he knocked them out and teleported away. "Reel us in!" Tanulia shouted as the wooden panels slowly moved upwards. A couple of minutes later, they finally reached the inside. The interior of the ship was brightly lit with golden chandeliers. Tremendous braziers encompassing several columns lit up every part of the ship and covered the interior in warm silver and dancing shadows. The large mirrors on the embowed ceiling danced in the flickering light while stone effigies and wolves looked down upon the granite floor of this majestic ship. Alpha Guardian. Guardian Captain. A group of highly trained elites of the Hunter Guardians was there to escort them to the interrogation room specially built to contain the Dark Lord. The 12 men were clad in silver armor forged with the same metal as the ship's hull. However, even the elites glinted with fear in their eyes when they saw the Dark Lord in person. Wasting no time, they escorted the trio through a hallway guarded by more armed soldiers until they reached an 8-foot door made of copper. From where they started their journey to the door decorated by banners and lit with golden orbs that illuminated the paintings of elven men and women below them. The 3 guards leading the escort pushed open the copper door to reveal an empty room surrounded by white walls. There was only an oak table, 2 chairs on one side, and 1 metal chair on the opposite side of the table. Michael was stunned by Peyton's betrayal. But, more than betrayal, it seemed like a carefully elaborated plan. While watching the interrogation room and the glass on either side of the room reminded him of the interrogation rooms of Earth's law enforcement. The sword was still stabbed in the guts and Peyton made a habit of twisting the sword every 10 seconds. "Sit your ass down." Peyton punched the Dark Lord in the face before pushing him down on the metal chair. As soon as he was forced to sit on the chair, the elite guardians entered the room with more golden chains and tied the Dark Lord to the chair as tight as they could. His hands were tied to the back of the chair while his legs were tied to the chair's legs. Additionally, they put a jade collar around his neck, and the moment the collar touched him, it glistened brightly. Tanulia ordered the elites as they quickly left the room, leaving Tanulia and Peyton in the room with the Dark Lord. At last, Peyton let go of the sword's hilt and went to sit beside Tanulia on the chair facing the Dark Lord. But the sword was still glowing and sticking out of his guts though. Blood bags and retractable dagger. Tanulia retrieved several pouches drenched in blood out from her cleavage while Peyton stabbed herself with the retractable trick dagger. The rooms are powered with hundreds of runes that even we haven't fully comprehended. So don't bother teleporting or using any spells, Tanulia snickered. The last time we met, I saw you bleed. And you know what we Hunter Guardians say about that, if it bleeds, we can kill it. The elites who were witnessing the interrogation through the window couldn't feel proud of what they had achieved. So it was all an elaborate plan to catch me, the Dark Lord asked Tanulia and Peyton. For a moment, Tanulia and Peyton looked at each other. She then patted Peyton on the shoulder. She is the one who came up with the plan. Never in her entire life had Peyton gone through such a burden as she did to catch the Dark Lord. But at that moment, looking at the Dark Lord on the prisoner's chair, she felt the pain was worth it. Tanulia turned her gaze from the Dark Lord to the windows, which were one-way mirrors. They seemed to be a mirror when seen from one side, but like a window when seen from the opposite side. The Alpha Guardians used the windows disguised as a mirror for surveillance. "Bring me the crate." A few seconds after Tanulia ordered the elites whole were standing on the mirror's other side, an elite guard entered the room, carrying a wooden crate. The guard quickly put the crate on the table and left the room as fast as he could. It was evident to everyone that despite being the elites, they still trembled at the sight of the Dark Lord. Sponsored content. Visit Rietal. Me for extra chapters. Tanulia put her hand into it and grabbed something from the crate. When she opened her palm, still tainted with fake blood, Michael saw his spiders dormant on her palm without moving. We know you were watching us. It took us some time. You bugged us, but we did and turned it against you. After showing him the spiders, Tunnelish closed her fist, crushing the spiders to dust. Tiriana, how is she? One would expect Tanulia to lose her calm or act furiously. However, she remained rather calm despite his question and what was happening to Tiriana, a necessary sacrifice. When Michael thought the Guardians couldn't stoop any lower, Tanulia surprised him. Tiriana was her best friend, yet she just waved it off, saying a necessary sacrifice like Tiriana's life was worth nothing. You will pay for what you did to her. I will personally make sure you suffer more than she ever did, Tanulia coldly exclaimed as the Dark Lord turned his gaze at Peyton. You are really a great actor, the Dark Lord mused. Those who heard him from outside sensed no fear in his tone, which made them terrified of him even more. It was not an act, Peyton said, gritting her teeth. In case you're wondering, we knew about the Nightwalkers long before you sent Victor with Peyton and tipped off the royal news. I have to give it to you. Putting the Guardians against the Holy Church and turning the people against us at the same time was a great move. Tanulia snickered once again as she continued, but you forgot one thing. Tanulia leaned forward. When we hang you in front of Elon and reveal the real Desert Eagle operation, we will be hailed as heroes by the people. The future generations will sing songs about us and the sacrifices we made to eradicate you, so you let all those people die just to catch me? Peyton saw the Dark Lord tilting his head. To be honest, his every move creeped her out. But what she went through to get him made her stronger than ever before. Bang! Peyton suddenly stood up from her chair and punched him in the face once again. That's on you. She raised her voice. If you hadn't exposed the vampires, those would have been alive. Bang! Tanulia let Peyton punch him again and didn't bother to stop her. As far as Tanulia was concerned, Peyton deserved to torture him because of what she went through to get him. However, a few punches to the face were nowhere closer to what he truly deserved. Victor was outman inside the Nightwalkers. We were getting so much information about them and how they operate. But unfortunately, because of you, we lost a valuable asset who could have tipped us about the attack in Idrizel. Peyton snarled at the Dark Lord. Except for Peyton, Tanulia, and Tiriana, none of them had any idea about Victor's true origin. He was a Guardian spy, and now Michael had killed him. Meanwhile, the elites outside saw Zanali strolling toward them. When she arrived at the mirrors, her eyes went wide in shock. Her entire body felt shivers looking at the dark figure sitting opposite Peyton and Tanulia. Is that? Her voice trailed away in utter shock. Yes, Guardian Captain. That is the Dark Lord. Chapter 5:18 Unmasking the Dark Lord. Ha! Suddenly, the Dark Lord burst into creepy laughter. His maniac laughter echoed through the room and sent shivers down the Guardian's spines. Your bullshit doesn't work on me, elf. I can see it in your eyes. You know about the attack long before I exposed the vampires. The only difference is because I exposed them, the vampires left some people alive so they could spread the message. Otherwise, it would have been a complete massacre with no survivors to tell any tales. Zanali was startled by his words. There was no way the Alpha Guardian knew about the attack and did nothing to prevent the killings. So many people, including Nagas in their human forms, were killed in the arena by the vampires. Tanulia creased her brows as he continued, You were planning to catch the elder vampire. But you didn't expect the dark net to be so problematic to break. Now that your incompetence backfired and caused so many lives, you're trying to pin it on me. Pin it on Lucifer or the Dark Lord as usual. Peyton heard the Dark Lord snicker. He leaned back on the chair and played beats on the table casually. We will catch the vampires. Just like we caught you. Tanulia clenched her fist only to see the Dark Lord snicker again. At what cost? You two are responsible for more deaths than me, and you people call me the Dark Lord. He turned his head to look at the mirror. The elite guardians and Zanali felt as though he was looking at them. I wonder what your future Supreme Guardian has to say about your plan. For the first time, a shock emerged on Tanulia's face. She stared at the Dark Lord without batting an eye. Noah Winston. I know all about him, Tanulia Varan. Bang. As soon as he spoke these words, Tanulia kicked her chair backward and lunged at him over the table. She grabbed his shoulder and punched him without pulling her punch. Ha! But the Dark Lord kept laughing as though he heard a joke. His laugh became creepier by the second, and many Guardians wanted it to stop. Alpha Guardian, the latest _SODs are on website. After seeing Tanulia punching him for the 50th time, Peyton softly called her to stop Tanulia. Although they suspect the Dark Lord was not a human and possessed inhuman strength and power, Peyton still didn't want to take his life before they could get as much information as possible from him, particularly about where he came from. The demon realm or hell realm was something which they knew frighteningly little. The last page's grimoire about the Dark Age and the Dark Lord mentioned something about a demon king of Hell Realm, and the higher-ups of the Guardian Guild suspected the Dark Lord might have some information about the demon king. Unfortunately, the only information they possessed about the demon king was a name, Hunter. Dictator with a badass system MC's name is also Hunter. What a coincidence. The higher-ups were none other than elders in the Sky Hall, but even the Alpha Guardians had no idea that the Sky Hall from the shadows controlled them. He doesn't know, and it will stay that way, Tanulia said before throwing one last punch at him. Her fist felt numb after punching him repeatedly. After we're done with you, we will see how your body is built. Starting from cutting open your throat, Tanulia threatened him, but he still kept laughing. You're a maniac. Not a god, like some sickos claiming you are, Peyton growled. Seeing you hang to death will make everything I went through worth it. Again, I wonder what your future Supreme Guardian has to say about your plan. Particularly the part where you endangered his little sister's life. Seeing Tanulia and Peyton remain calm, Michael slowly connected the dots and was truly surprised by them. They knew the vampires were going to kidnap her and force her to retrieve that key, Michael said to himself. If I am right, they are planning to kill the vampires after she retrieves the key. Then they will take the key from her. You should worry about yourself, Tanulia snarled at the Dark Lord. Set a course to Draddle. Elders will meet us there. Tanulia turned her head and locked her gaze with Zanali. Zanali nodded before leaving the interrogation room towards the ship captain. Because Zanali was a guardian captain, a couple of elites followed her behind. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room, Peyton and Tanulia each took a few parchments from the crate on the table and opened them. What am I thinking? Suddenly Tanulia smacked her forehead. Remove his mask. I want to see who is behind that mask, Tanulia ordered Peyton as the elites standing outside the room took a step forward. At that moment, every pair of eyes were locked on the Dark Lord's face. The latest _SODs are on website. Peyton stood up from her chair with a nod, strolled to the Dark Lord, and came behind him. First thing, she removed the cloak covering his head, revealing raven black hair. It seemed like Peyton was doing everything in slow motion to the elite guardians. His smooth raven black hair was long enough to reach his neck. After removing the cloak, everyone could see the black skull mask on his face clearly. Michael had difficulty controlling the urge to kill Peyton and Tanulia then and there. However, he was unable to send his sword through their heads personally. As Michael was watching Tanulia and Peyton, the latter grabbed his skull mask. The Guardians felt their heartbeat rapidly increasing, including Peyton. Time to see how you look behind the mask, Dark Lord. Peyton snickered as she slowly pulled up the mask to reveal the Dark Lord's face. They all felt a chill running through their spines as soon as his mask came off. His face was decayed with several cracks in his face. Half of his cheek was missing and they could see his yellowish decayed teeth. The two pale white eyes stared at Tanulia with a creepy smile on his face. Tanulia twitched her nose as the strong pungent smell of rotten skin entered her nostrils. It was pretty horrendous, to say the least. A Netheral. Tanulia could recognize an undead or a Netheral as they were commonly known in the Cultivation continents when she saw one. Haha, The undead burst into laughter and squirmed, shaking the chair he was tied to. This time when Tanulia heard his mad laughter, she had a bad feeling. Itch. The undead abruptly cut his laughter short and opened his mouth as wide as he could. When Tanulia looked into his mouth, she noticed something glowing inside his mouth. Before she could guess what that was, the undead spits the glowing rock onto the table. The elites immediately leaped away and curled into a ball, thinking the rock was going to explode. For some reason, the first thought when they saw the rock was that it might be a bomb. Tanulia stared at the jade rock on the table while a bright light inside the rock pulsated in regular intervals like a heartbeat. None of them had an idea about the rock until a bright light shot out of the rock to the wall behind the undead. The bright light slowly turned into a figure resembling the Dark Lord, but the Dark Lord before they unmasked him. Dark Lord, the undead uttered the word as Peyton felt her entire body go numb. TSK, Peyton, 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 the Dark Lord projected on the wall amused. The elites slowly managed to grasp the fact that the undead wasn't the real Dark Lord. But Tanulia was smarter than the rest. Hence, she realized the truth, the Dark Lord had played them. Visit. For the best no__industry experience, where is Tiriana? The Dark Lord asked as Tanulia quickly scanned everything around the Dark Lord. But no matter how hard she looked, she couldn't see anything but darkness around him. A few elites outside quickly made their way to Tiriana's room without waiting for Tanulia's orders. Instead, they were trained by Tanulia and worked under long enough to sense her thoughts. Here she is. In the dim red light, Tanulia saw the Dark Lord pulling something from his side. Tiriana, Tanulia muttered, looking at Tiriana in the Dark Lord's hands. He grabbed Tiriana by the neck as she squirmed to escape his grasp, but to no avail. A necessary sacrifice. The Dark Lord calmly said in his demonic voice. Then he turned his head to look at Tiriana. Boom. The elites gasped in shock as Tiriana exploded into a bloody mist in the blink of an eye. Peyton stumbled back, seeing Tiriana's sudden yet horrifying death. On the other hand, Tanulia clenched her fist as her nails protruded the skin, making her literally bleed. After Tiriana exploded into blood-red mist, they saw nothing but red until the Dark Lord swiped off the blood. The guardians who went to look for Tiriana returned to the area and pushed open the copper door. Tiriana is not in her room, Alpha Guardian. The two armored guards had no idea that Tiriana exploded to death just a few moments ago. Boom. Tanulia raised her hand as a powerful gust of wind blasted away the two guards. I thought you were fine with her dying, Tanulia Valrin, the Dark Lord said, tilting his head. He sounded amused by the anger in Tanulia's eyes. Not a good feeling, is it? Realizing your whole plan is just a colossal failure? Ha! He laughed, shocking everyone. Your elders have been wetting their pants for thousands of years because of me. A simple thought of me gave them nightmares. Did you really think that two bitches could catch me? His voice became colder and murderous. He then took a step closer as they saw his face closer on the projected screen. Slowly his crimson-red eyes became dark as Tanulia saw his eyes flaming up. Under their gazes, he raised his hand and kept his middle finger and thumb together. Visits. For a better user experience, Peyton, when you thought you were playing me, you forgot something really important. Peyton's mind went black as she walked backward in fear. I am the Dark Lord. He snapped his finger as the entire white room turned red with Peyton's blood. The guardians gasped, realizing that Peyton exploded into a bloody red mist just like Tiriana with a snap of his fingers. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.